Good evening everyone, at 6 o'clock and I declare this meeting open. Welcome everyone present and viewing online. I'd now like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we're meeting tonight, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as we continue to grow our communities together by saying Kaya Wanju Mali Budja, hello and welcome to Swan Country. Item 2, the disclaimer, which I'll now read aloud. The City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during this meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any person or body should rely upon that discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval and the conditions which relate to it or the refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. The recording will be archived and made available on the Council's website after the meeting. If you choose to participate in the meeting during public question, public statement time, it is assumed your consent is given for the audio to be recorded. Please keep your comments respectful to both Council and other members of the community. Visual images of the public will not be captured on live stream. Conditions of entry: no electronic, visual or audio recording or transmitting device or instrument is permitted to be used. A person who breaches this provision of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 will be required to immediately leave the premises. Item 3, attendance and apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Bailey and Councillor Scanlon. Are there any others, Mr CEO, that you know of?
No further apologies.
Okay, item 4, declarations of financial proximity or interest affecting impartialities. Mr CEO, you have a number?
Yes, we do. There's a number as disclosed at the agenda forum. Additional ones in consideration for that is item C36, and this is from Councillor Congerton, and it's in relation to the State Administrative Tribunal reconsideration of proposed use and associated development for the Artificial Insemination Centre, Lot 780 Gaston Road in Bullsbrook, and that's an impartiality interest, as the Burgess Group has acted on behalf in the past. Also, Councillor McCulloch, in relation to the same item, C36, the State Administrative Tribunal reconsideration of the proposed use and associated development for an Artificial Insemination Centre, Lot 1780 Gaston Road, Bullsbrook, and that's a financial one. Partner has conducted business with the applicants. Councillor Catalano has an interest in item C11, the building setbacks at the new junction, as a member of the Midland Society, and that's an interest of impartiality. And also item C14, the Midland as a heritage area, as a member of the Midland Society, and again that is an impartiality interest. The next interest is from Councillor Kiley, and it's in relation to item 8.1, the annual meeting of electors. As an executive of the Guildford Association, have contributed to discussions around matters that may be been made by the association, and that is an interest of impartiality.
Thank you. Item 5, public question time.
Oh, Mr Mayor, apologies. I've got an interest to declare an impartiality in 4.8 relating to the additions to the cafe in Guildford, as I'm a member of the Guildford Association, and I understand the rules relating to declaration of interest have changed recently. So
you can complete the form and pass it up to the CEO. Councillor Richardson, same, if you can complete the form and pass it up so it's on the record. Item 5, public question time. Questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996. Questions and answers marked with an asterisk have been amended either for the purpose of summarising, that is the removing of preambles, statements or editing. Item 5.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. All the questions asked by Ms Sally Block on behalf of the Gidgee Progress Association on the 17th of March are included in the agenda. Item 5.2, questions relating to reports contained in the agenda. and 5.2.1 questions of which due notice were given, there were nil. 5.2.2 questions without due notice, and other questions from the public gallery in relation to items on the agenda. And I believe Mr. Aaron Bowman has got some questions for items on the agenda. Mr. Bowman, if you come forward and ask your questions.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, this is in regards to item 4.13. A mobile telecommunication tower usually requires a 15 metre by 15 metre parcel of land. Why is there a need to initiate an amendment for all of lot 1003?
Thank you. I'll take that on notice.
Okay. Second question. Am I correct in believing that if an amendment is undertaken for all of lot 1003, that the tower or other additional future towers could then be built on any part of lot 1003?
That's my understanding, but I'll take it on notice and give you written confirmation.
Okay. Third question. I note section 523(2)(c) of the Local Government Act is quoted as the reason that item C 3.5 is listed as confidential. For other local governments with a similar item, it has not been confidential. Why is the City of Swan not being open, transparent and accountable to us, the electors and ratepayers?
I'm just trying to find the item you're referring to. Ms Albrecht? It's not confidential. Just waiting for the staff member to get a microphone to answer your question.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. There are two items on the agenda tonight relating to the CEO performance review. One item relates to the appointment of a consultant to assist with that process. That is the item that's confidential. All other components of that item are in item 7.1 and are available for public viewing.
Does that answer your question, Mr Bowman?
Well, it's an answer, but I don't agree with it. But I'm not here to debate, Mr Deputy Mayor. Question.
Can't help it if you don't like the answer, but it's the answer.
Question number 4. On Tuesday the 30th of March, 4 local primary schools, being Averley North, Averley, Arbor Grove and Upper Swan, had an inter-school sports carnival with sports played at the Ellenbrook District Open Space North. The function room appeared to have been hired out for a wake, which involved alcohol, and as such, alcohol-affected persons. Will Council urgently request the Administration to review its current operating procedures and policies to ensure our school children are not placed in situations like this again while utilising City of Swan facilities?
I'll take that on notice and you'll get a response in due course.
And my final question, is the developer of Clementine Estates complying with all their requirements, especially including dust suppression measures and road closure requirements?
I'll take that on notice, and if you could leave a copy of those questions so we can answer them in full. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Bowman. Item 5.3, other questions. 5.3.1, questions of which have been taken on notice. There are 3 questions from Ms Caroline Kickett, and they've been answered. There is a number of questions from Jacqueline Jones, and they've all been answered. 3 questions as well. Miss Naomi Jenkins, 5 questions and they have been answered. Miss Karen Mowat, 5 questions and they have all been answered. Mr Bob Purkew, 5 questions and they have been answered. Mrs Yvonne Baku, 2 questions which have been answered. 5.3.2 questions without due notice. Miss Lisa Jones asked 5 questions and they've been answered, as have 3 questions from Miss Stephanie Radis. 3 questions from Miss Sarah Howard have been taken on notice, and the Executive Manager of Planning Development will answer those questions in due course. 2 questions from Mr Chris Kokoza. Those 2 questions have been answered. And the next item is any other questions from the public gallery. No other questions from public gallery. Then we'll go on to item 6, which is public statement time. 3 registered, but I've accepted 2 more this evening, and I'll do them in the order that I had. Item 6.1, Ms Joanne Purser. It's in regards to item 4.8, additions to existing restaurant cafe, Stirling Street, Guildford. Ms Purser, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and good evening, councillors and staff. My name's Joanne Purser. I'm the owner and operator of the Guildford Town Garden Centre and have been for the last 30 years. I'm asking you not to approve the extension of the Post Landscaping Centre as the business is still operating without approvals for its garden business, office, and has been doing so for many years. As a ratepayer, I'm puzzled as to why the City has taken no action to correct this. Far from taking action, the City is now recommending approval on an extension that has been there for months. Why is this not listed as a retrospective approval? This shed is purported to be part of the approved cafe. Has the City verified this in person? It has been verified by customers and ratepayers that this shed is actually a pay station for the garden centre, and I think officers should confirm what is actually going on before recommending approval. This business has already been given concessions above other businesses that we do not enjoy in this area. For example, when I opened the business, it was many months before I had signage, and while awaiting approvals. In 2000, I spent $35,000 building a car park for my customers, plus ongoing monthly rent. Why are we? I've always followed due process. And why are we allowing other businesses to operate illegally? It sets a poor standard in the City of Swan, and quite frankly, I see it as nepotism and poor governance. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your public statement. The next public statement is on item 6.2, Mr Patrick Irwin, and it's item C1.4, designating Midland as a heritage area. Thank you, Mr Irwin. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Johnson's motion to designate Midland as a heritage area. Midland was established in a short period, partly as a railway town, but boosted also by the gold rush at around Federation. It was a boom town built over a relatively short period. During the gold rush, camel trains loaded in Guildford stopped on Harper Street at Spring Reserve to water before setting off into the goldfields right across the road from where we live. So Midland, as a boom town in the Federation period, has remarkable integrity of buildings of that period. And this integrity is still discernible and certainly worthy of support. This integrity is one of the main assets of the old town, and it should be better appreciated and supported. And this heritage designation of that central area would be very helpful. Many older properties, especially residential heritage properties, are not recorded on the municipal inventory nor on the state register. But not only do these places have a great deal of social history, they also contribute to the sense of place of Old Midland. The Old Town Centre, if the original buildings were restored and the verandas replaced on the shops,
You have 30 seconds left, thank
would
you.
have a similar period charm of Hannon Street in Kalgoorlie. Our Old Town Centre could attract tourism and the retail energy similar to that found in the old heart of Leederville, of Fremantle and of Maylands. All these places show the suitability for vibrant reuse of older properties for retail and hospitality. Our Old Town Centre is moribund and needs revival. To recognise and define the heritage area of Old Midland Town will help define this area of integrity and significance and facilitate enhancement and revival of the area.
Thank you, Mr Irwin. How long have you got left?
I've got one paragraph.
Continue, thank you.
Lastly, Council should be aware in developing your sustainability policy that heritage buildings involve not only cultural values but also material values. The bricks retain their embodied energy, the timber elements retain encapsulated carbon, and so forth, and thus the sustainability value of heritage retention, refurbishment and revival is very important. And I hold up this book, which Volume 1 of Heritage Homes of Midland Town, which is in the library, and I hope councillors have an opportunity to look at this.
Thank you, Mr Irwin. The next item, 6.3, is Ms Francesca Irwin. It's on item C 1.2, proposed amendment to structure plan subdivision Midland Oval redevelopment master plan. You have 2 minutes also.
Thank you. My name is Francesca Irwin. Myself and family have lived locally for over 23 years and are involved in many local community initiatives. The statement relates to C1.2 around the structure plan amendments to the Oval redevelopment master plan. I'm on the committee of the Midland Community Carols. It's a collaborative venture with several local groups and churches. We held the first ever event at Weep Park last Christmas. Approximately 450 people attended. It was a relaxed, interactive, happy, seasonal event for all ages, and we're very thankful for that. Despite the City of Swan being one of the sponsors and this being the inaugural use of this new space, there was no follow-up from the Council to ask about the practicalities and appropriateness for Weep Park for events. So here is some feedback, councillors. 1. On the lead-up, there was much difficulty arranging site access. I was repeatedly sent maps by council staff, mistakenly showing the size of Weep Park to be double that of its reality, spreading over onto the other side of Grandstand Road. Council staff were unaware of the reality of Weep Park's size and location. 2. Weep Park is too small for large-scale events. We could not have managed more than 450 to 500 people. 3. Site is hard to access, no obvious entrance. People had trouble finding it, even though it's surrounded by nothing. 4. The grandstand stage size and orientation is not fit for purpose. We had to hire a larger stage that could be better located. 5. Decision to combine grandstand's backstage with a mini kids playground is poor design, as kids have inappropriate access to backstage equipment, etc. 6. We were disappointed with the poorly designed mini playground area, a climbing wall with feet and hands too far apart to use, only a basketball hoop to interact with. So, Community Carols was a success, but it certainly showed us the limits of other plans we have to grow the event.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
In summary, Weep Park is pocket size. It's just too small for major events. Please support the motion to extend the Oval back to its original footprint, suitable for recreation and large events as expected at the centre of a planned, high-density residential city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've had a couple of late requests for public statements I will allow, but I'll ask those people in the gallery if they can now vacate to allow the people wanting to do their public statement to come in, and I thank you for coming along tonight. So, councillors, I believe the next public statements will be on item 4.16, and I'll call to the microphone Mr Alan Jenner. Thank you, Mr Jenner. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, councillors, mayor, councillors. Thank you very much. Basically, I'm a ratepayer. I live in Averley. I'm in the Pearce ward, and I find it quite annoying that, in fact, Councillor Jones, McCulloch and Bailey haven't actually come out to see what we're talking about. With regards to the outbuilding shed that's going to be massively too big. I noticed that Councillor Jones has put up there regarding number 1, that if there's going to be some insulation put on the shed, then that will reduce the bit of sound. That may well be the case, but we're not dealing about the sound initially. We're dealing with the size, the visual amenity, the boundary setback, the actual admittance that it's not a shed. It's going to be used as a workshop for small hobbying stuff and vehicle repair, which would necessitate a compressor, air guns for undoing wheel nuts and stuff like that. So all that kind of noise will be there at any time. As I say, the boundary setback for a 9.5 metre shed should be 1.5 metres, not 0.15, as said last Wednesday. Design principle and R codes have not been followed. the Soakwell location has been drawn in over and above the plan that was already written up and drawn by Celebration Homes, as I found out. So how do we know that the soak walls have been moved and been moved correctly, and also the storm water has been piped in there correctly? If it hasn't, then I'm liable, because I'm 600 millimetres down from the other land. I'm liable to get flooding come the winter. Basically, I just cannot say any more, apart from
You have
there's
30
been...
seconds left, thank you.
Sorry?
Have 30 seconds
Yeah.
left.
Apart from that, from the beginning to the end, there has been some administrative errors all the way through, and councillors, I urge you to not to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can just say that this is on item 13.3, not 4.16. That was my mistake. I got the two confused. So I thank you for your public statement. Councillor.
Excuse me, Mr Deputy Mayor, just to clarify that the three of us have been out to have a look. Thank you, Mr Jenner.
Thank you. I believe the next speaker on the same item is Mr Leon McLaughlin.
All right. Just thank you for allowing me to have the time to speak. Just want to make a statement on the proposed motion by Councillor Jones that the shed will incorporate sound-absorbing insulation to the southern side. I don't see how this is going to have a great impact when you've still got 4 other walls which this noise is going to bounce off. This does nothing to fix the visual amenity problems that we have discussed. All this does is to create a little less noise. This has no impact on visual amenity. This has no impact on property values. This has no impact on my outdoor entertaining. Has nothing. I just urge you to listen to the motion by Councillor Kiley. He was one of the few council members who took the time to come stand in my backyard and witness how this is going to affect me. Other councillors did not choose to, but I just encourage you to listen to the motion by Councillor Kiley for making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker on this, I believe it's the same item, is Regina Capehorn. No, not on this item. Okay, do you know which item it is?
It's 10 Court.
That's the 14.16 that I mentioned earlier. If you can come to the microphone, you'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I heard that it was going to be approved, all the recommendations with regardings to the two-storey house within 12 metres of the road in 10 Dulcify Court. It's actually 12 metres from Connemara Drive, which will greatly impact on us. It says in the report that only 8 saplings will be removed. Well, the owners have removed about 40 major trees, and yet the council has done nothing about that with regards to it being removed outside of their building envelope. They have removed enough trees that the house can be further set back in the area where they actually have removed the trees. It doesn't have to be that close. So, and I really feel that if you're going to have the bylaws, that you should only build within your building envelope and not remove trees outside of your building envelope, then you need to be that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, what's to stop everybody who has a bush block in Brigadoon removing all the trees and building exactly where they want to, which is what these people have done. I feel it's very unfair and unjust, and I think that the council needs to look at that and look at exactly what's happening here, because you're not following your own recommendations and your own guidelines by allowing this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that completes public statement time. Moving on to item 7 is petitions. There are none registered. Any councillors have any petitions to present? Being none, we'll move on to item 8, which is deputations. All deputations were heard at last week's agenda forum on the 7th of April. Item 9, announcements by the presiding member. I have nil. Item 10, members' questions, and 10.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. There were nil. 10.2, questions of which due notice has been given. Councillor Johnson, you had a number, and all have been answered except questions 9 to 14 and 16.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got a follow-on, if I may.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, 10.2, question 2, answer 2. The answer 2 says the city may give the owner of the property a direction pursuant to section 2.14 of the Planning and Development Act. May I ask, through you, Mr Mayor, to the CEO or the relevant officer, why it's may give the owner? Why don't we just give the owner a property direction?
Mr Vanderlyn or Mr Russell? I think Mr Russell exited at the right time.
Mr Deputy Mayor, through you, if the question is whether the city has given directive to the landowner, my understanding is that city staff have met with the owner. They've indicated to him what processes are available to address the issue. He has submitted a scheme amendment application but hasn't paid a fee for that yet. So that is where it's at the moment.
So I recall this is what happened last time. He submitted an application but didn't pay and thought he'd done everything. So we followed up and asked him to pay. Because this retrospect, he's an expert at retrospective applications, and this has been going on for over 5 years. Are we going to follow him up and ask him to pay?
We will, yes.
Takes us to item 10.3, questions of which due notice has not been given. Are there any other questions from members? Councillor McNamara.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question for the CEO. Will the CEO instruct the Parks and Garden staff to carry out their duties in the landscaping and public open spaces in a way that the finished standard is seen as being the same throughout the city? And number 2, will the CEO ensure that all areas are deemed pristine over other areas which are not now deemed to be so? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. That'll be taken on notice, and I'll pass that to the CEO for the minute clerk. Item 11, councillors, leave of absence. Are there any leave of absence required? Takes us to item 12, confirmation of the minutes, and a resolution is required to confirm the minutes of the 17th of March ordinary council meeting. Move Councillor Parry. Need a seconder. Second, Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried. That takes us on to item 13, any business left over from the previous meeting. And the first item is 13.3, outbuilding shed in Oldswater Chase, Averley. It's on page 15. And Councillor Jones, over to you. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I withdraw that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kylie, you've got an alternative.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, my motion is that Council resolve to refuse the proposed to vary deemed to comply requirements of the R codes with respect to the proposed outbuilding shed and vehicular access at lot 5505, number 29, Oldswater Chase, Averley, for the following reasons. The proposed development, if approved, will have an adverse impact on the visual amenity of the neighbouring property and streetscape. And I would also like to add in that it is, number 2, it is inconsistent with the local planning scheme, our local planning scheme, as it does not comply with a number of the R code provisions.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Prodovnik. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. Takes us to the next item, which is item 13.5, Wooroloo Bushfire Council Rates Concession. It's page 27, councillors. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This motion, councillors, alternative to the officer recommendation, is that council resolve to 1. Apply a one-off pro rata credit for the 2021 council rates for the City of Swan residents impacted by the Wooroloo bushfires for properties that are damaged but the houses are habitable when confirmed as per the City's verified register. for the period from 1st of February to 30th of June 2021. Number 2, apply a one-off credit for the full 2021 council rates for the City of Swan residents impacted by the Warraloo bushfires for properties that are destroyed and the houses are not habitable when confirmed with as per the City's verified register for the period from 1st of July 2020 to 30th of June 2021. Number 3, note that the City cannot approve any credit for the emergency services levy as this charge is not under the City's control. 4, any outstanding balance, including arrears, after the credit is applied, staff to communicate with ratepayers and arrange extended repayment period if needed. And 5, review the recovery situation as part of the 21-22 budget deliberations.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor McCulloch. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried.
Thanks, Kate.
Takes us to Part B of the agenda, councillors, and the adoption of those recommendations contained in items not withdrawn. So for the benefit of members observing the meeting, the Council uses an en bloc method of decision making. This means that agenda items where Council will support the officer's recommendation are not debated separately. One vote is taken on all of those items and the officer's recommendation is therefore the decision of Council.
Question, Mr Mayor, at this point.
Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just been pointed out to me, and may or may not be right, I noticed that 4.8 is in Part B. Is that correct? I've got that withdrawn.
Yes, 4.8 is going to be withdrawn.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to go through those items now.
Right.
So the following items have been withdrawn for debate. Item 3.1, Midland CBD on-street parking. Item 4.1, draft form management policy. 4.4, amendment to Diana Crescent Kerwin Way for aged care facility. I believe you're withdrawing 4.5, the Ballas review, Councillor Johnson? Yes, that's right. 4.6, the Brabham second stage local structure plan. 4.7, additions to the existing microbrewery in West Swan Road, Henley Brook. 4.8, additions to existing cafe, Stirling Street, Guildford. 4.10, extension of the aged care facility, Great Northern Highway, Middle Swan. 4.13, it's an amendment to the telecommunications tower in the Vines. 4.15, group dwelling, Blue Gum Road, Beachborough. 5.5, petition slip lane to Kiara Shops. 7.1, CEO recruitment, performance review and termination standards, council policies. And 8.1, annual meeting of electors. Are there any others, councillors? Being no others, can I have a mover for those 20 items so they can be moved en bloc now? Thank you. Move Councillor Parry, seconded Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare those items carried. And we now go to the first item with withdrawn items, which is item 3.1, Midland CBD on-street paid parking. It's on page 37 of the agenda. And Councillor Podovnik, you have a motion.
Okay, so the motion is that Council resolve to adopt the officer's recommendation with an amendment to Part 1 as follows. Change the first hour free provision currently provided by on-street paid parking ticket machines within the Midland CBD to the first 2 hours free. Record the reasons for changing the officer's recommendation as 1. 2 hours free on-street parking is what residents and business owners in the Midland CBD have repeatedly asked for. 2. Amend the City of Swan parking local laws. Amending the City of Swan parking local laws would address the problem of people getting free tickets all day and enable 2 hour free parking to be monitored and enforced. 3. Giving 2 hours free but limiting the total parking time allowed to all on-street paid parking bays to a minimum of 3 hours strikes the right balance, as it A, allows people more time to support local businesses, and B, discourages all-day parking.
Second, Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? Yes. You've got 5 minutes for your debate, Councillor Podovnik.
Council put in on-street paid parking in 2016, and the need for 2 hours free parking was acknowledged and recognised by Council 4 years later. At that meeting, Council asked for a report to be done to consider the options of providing the first 2 hours free instead of 1 hour. Currently, we allow 1 hour free, but the system can be manipulated and you can repeatedly get a free ticket. And that's been identified as a problem. The report to Council says if the free ticket timeframe was extended to 2 hours, this would only facilitate and encourage this behaviour. I disagree. Simply because if people want to keep going back for free tickets all day, they'll do this whether it's 1 hour free or 2 hour free, especially if they're planning to stay there all day. So what's the real problem with an hour? People usually need more than an hour to see a dentist, a beautician, the podiatrist, or have lunch with friends. Parents who want to take their kids to story time at the Midland Library and then browse the shelves for some books afterwards also need more than an hour. Giving 2 hours free also helps businesses who want people to spend time at their premises. If we are proposing to put in a 3 hour time limit on street parking, why wouldn't we give people the first 2 hours free? 2 hours is long enough to get your hair cut, washed and blow-dried, and hairdressers will be relieved. They no longer have to run out and tend to parking meters halfway through a client's appointment, which they do. A dental receptionist told me people have literally hopped off the dentist's chair to put money in the meter when their appointment has run overtime. It stresses them out so much. The first 2 hours free is also what a variety of business owners have told me would be better for their clients, because sometimes their clients need a bit more than an hour, not always 2 hours, but definitely more than 1 hour. And what about Centrelink? People who go to Centrelink definitely need more than an hour. 2 hours is also what residents and business owners have repeatedly asked for. Unfortunately, this report to Council does not explore that request. It doesn't say why residents say they would like longer parking. There is no reference to consultation with business owners in the report, except to say they don't like full-time workers parking all day in front of their businesses. It doesn't tell us their response to free parking being extended from 1 hour to 2, so I had to do my own research. And that research confirms business owners are happy to extend 1 hour to 2, and they support capping the time people can park on the street to stop people parking there all day. This motion gets the balance right. 2 hours is needed more than ever because the city wants to tighten its control over people who get more than one free ticket on the same day. And the city wants to do this through making changes to our parking local laws so we can find people who go more than one, get one free ticket in any 24-hour period. The plan to fine people makes it more important than ever to give people more time to attend appointments without worrying about getting a fine. You can actually park all day at Midland Gate Shopping Centre without getting a ticket. People who go there don't have to worry about checking a parking meter every hour, and everyone is aware of this. So let's level the playing field and support as many businesses as we can. Let's make attending appointments in Midland an attraction for people. This motion simply asks for an extra hour. Residents are asking for an extra hour, business owners are too. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson has the seconder.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think Councillor Prodovnik's covered it very well, but I really have done a good job explaining it. I don't think I've got that many extra points. Back in 2015, when I first got on council, I'd heard very clearly from the community that they wanted 2 hours free and not 1 hour or half hour as it is now. Right now it's a mishmash. Some places it's 1 hour, some places it's half an hour. And then after I was on council, a few councillors moved little amendments to adjust it to make the half hour 1 hour in front of certain businesses, which I found quite fascinating because the objective of the Midland community, the Midland councillors and the Midland businesses was to get 2 hour free on-street parking everywhere in Midland. So councillors, as Councillor Prodovnik has said, 2 hours really is the minimum. So no matter what you're doing, you can't get it done in half an hour or 1 hour. So realistically, it's to the benefit of the businesses and the customers to give them 2 hours free. Now that 2 hours free puts people, I think, on a par, well, people visiting Midland on a par with people going to Ellenbrook or to any other shopping centre anywhere else in the city. I can see why there would be reasons, because Midland is our strategic metropolitan centre where we want to take well, we want to limit parking because, of course, people could just choose to park there all day and catch the train into Perth, or they could just park on the street because there are many businesses in Midland. But, councillors, we've got to give people what they're asking for. So every side of this equation is asking for 2 hours. At Midland Gate, I think the signs say 4 hours free, but you can in effect park there all day. It's the same at Centre Point, and it's a disadvantage to the on-street businesses of Midland to limit them to 1 hour or half an hour. It's driving people into Midland Gate and Centre Point, it's driving them into shopping centres to the detriment of our on-street businesses. So I think we need to be supporting our older on-street businesses by giving them what they want, which is 2 hours. If you had a workshop of businesses and customers, they'd all say 2 hours is the minimum. Last time this came up in 2015, 2016, one gentleman came and told us that 1 hour or half an hour was useless for people on dialysis. They were having to get up off the kidney machine, go in, feed some money into the car, come back again. It really was unacceptable. Councillors, this is what Midland businesses want, it's what the Midland community want, and it's what I think all three Midland Guildford Ward councillors have persistently asked for all the time I've been on council. So I'd ask councillors who are opposing this to think quite carefully about why they're doing it, and I'd like to hear the explanations as to why 2 hours is not a good idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The comments in relation to hairdressers, podiatry, restaurants, dentists, doctors and detriment to other businesses in Midland, I find a little strange. If you go to the hairdressers, you would probably note you need a little bit more time than an hour, so take your 1 hour free and put the money in to take the other hour. The same might be applied to a podiatry. The restaurant, however, is a different kettle of fish. Do you go to a restaurant for 2 hours? Some go for 3 hours, some go for 4 hours, and I have known some to go for lunch and dinner at the same setting. To go to the doctors is also a bit strange, and that's probably might be one where you make a 10 o'clock appointment with a doctor, he doesn't see you till 11, and you might still be in there till 12, so the 2 hours is not going to cut it either. And then we talk about the shops. People would rather go and park at Midland Gate and do shopping in Midland Gate and or at Centre Point because they find it easy to park and there isn't an impost on parking costs. And that is a detriment to other businesses. Well, the detriment to other businesses with a 2 hour parking position is that staff park in the bays for 2 hours. And I readily understand that the 3 hour strikeout deal might be in place if you move your car 2 bays down and whack another ticket on it. But the officer's recommendation has got the similar thing. We spent an awful lot of time, Mr Deputy Mayor, going through the Midland parking strategy, and the 1 hour to me is a successful parking provision. I haven't anyone sent me an email, no one has rung me in relation to extending the parking, but in the past I know of many shopkeepers that preferred to have the 1 hour so they had continuity of turnover outside of the shop and not have staff park in those bays. So I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to, in relation to Councillor Congdon's comments regarding appointments, I'd just like to point out that in areas of Ellenbrook we're quite lucky we don't have paid parking, whereas in Midland, if I attend a hairdresser having long hair and I decide to have highlights and a full colour, cut, wash and dry, it will be a 3 hour plus process. So I do have to get out of the chair and go out with a toddler and or children in tow and move my car or get another parking ticket. When I attend the doctors in Midland, I also have to go and get another parking ticket because guaranteed they are running not on time. I will park in Midland Shopping Centre and walk all the way around to the hairdresser so I can avoid getting out of the chair to have to go with foils in my hair to move my car to make sure I don't get a parking fine. For visitors that I have interstate at the moment, such as my dad, who's had a stroke, by the time he parks his car and walks to Midland Gate Shopping Centre and has to come back, I must guarantee that the energy expended by him with a stroke and a disabled leg would be a huge problem for him walking in and out. Just like to take into consideration that 2 hours minimum would be the minimum standard that I would be proposing.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't got a lot more to add, but just a couple of things. Many of the businesses in the paid parking area have fast turnover visits from shoppers needing to pop in and out. Having people park longer hours can be detrimental to those shops. And as Councillor Congleton said, with the 3-hour limit, people will not need to stress. If they have a 3-hour appointment, they get their 1 hour free and pay for the rest. The cost to park in other areas around Perth leaves us as a bit of a laughing stock with the cheap parking in Midland. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor. I will support this motion. I think at such time as we get the vibrancy back into Midland and the commercial area back up on its feet in Midland, I think we need to offer as much as we can to get people back into the area. We've still got some work to do on Midland Oval and that precinct, and I think once that gets going, we'll be able to get people back into Midland. But at the moment, we just aren't seeing it. We need to offer what we can to get people here, and I think the 2-hour limit is a good measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion? No other speakers. Councillor Prodovnik, your right to reply, please. You have 3 minutes.
Just very quickly, I'll keep it brief. I think I've covered a lot of points. I just want to say again, business owners and residents have repeatedly asked for this, and that's the reason Council asked for a report to be done in 2020, and at that meeting, Council asked for a report to be done to consider 2 hours. So obviously it's in response to repeated requests. So let's give people what they've repeatedly asked for. We can review this. Let's try it. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McNamara, the motion is passed. All other councillors were against. That takes us to item 4.1, draft management policy on fauna. It's on page 47. Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. Would you like me to read the whole of the motion or just the amendment?
Just the amendment, please.
Okay, so there's an amendment, point 5, request the CEO to write to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to explore the possibilities of land owned by DPLH, or that department, that is earmarked for reserves to be used for relocation of fauna that is displaced by DPLH property development within the City of Swan. Reason? Writing to the department is another strategy to achieve community requests for the fauna to be relocated and for the department to take responsibility for fauna on its development sites and relocate the animals to reserves that it already owns or will own through any future offsets.
Second, Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. Takes us to item 4.4, Amendment 190, Local Planning Scheme to classify land on Diana Crescent and Kerwin Way, Lockridge from recreational to public purpose, and Watercorp and a special use zone for residential aged care. It's on page 76, councillors of the agenda. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I also thank you for your assistance with helping me come up with this amendment. And I'll just read out the only amendment I've got under 5. One is to adopt the officer recommendation with the addition of the following as Part 5. Part 5, host at least 2 community consultation sessions at the Alice Davarin Centre in Lockridge, no later than the last 2 weeks of public consultation period envisaged under Part 3.
Seconded, Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. The next item, councillors, is item 4.6, Brabham Second Stage Local Structure Plan. It's on page 190. Councillor Parry.
Question, Mr Mayor.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
4.5, Bellevue East London
Yes,
Study.
sorry, it wasn't in my running sheet because it was a very late withdrawal. So 4.5, the Ballas Review. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Council's late information came in, so I have a deferral motion for the Bellevue East Land Use Study. My motion is to defer the decision until the May ordinary meeting of Council because a survey of Helen Street, conducted by a community member, and there are 17 houses in Helen Street, found that 7 additional owners would like a tree on their drive. The reason for the deferment is to allow ward councillors to consult with staff on the best way to engage with residents of Bellevue about further tree planting outside their homes. So I've added an extra word in there, further tree planting.
Thank you. I have a seconder. Councillor Prodovnik. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried, which takes us back to item 4.6. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to adopt the officer's recommendation with the addition of the following parts. Request the CEO to write to the Minister of Education requesting the construction of a second primary school noted in the plan to be built immediately and a high school within Brabham to be built within the next 3 years. Number 3 is request the CEO to write to the Minister of Planning demonstrating the City of Swan's disappointment with the lack of active public open spaces in the second stage area plan, given the high density development proposals within the urban growth corridor, and request the Department of Planning review its current open space provisions within the Planning and Development Act. And the reason for this record the reason for the changes to the officer's recommendation is that due to the significant growth of Brabham, in particular with young families in the local area, a second primary school is required to be built immediately, more parks and playgrounds for the children to play in, and a high school to be built to ensure that the local community has a local high school for the children that reside in Brabham.
Seconder, Councillor Congredon. Is there anyone against? There is. Councillor Cole, you wish to debate it? Okay, Councillor Parry, you have 5 minutes for your debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll be very brief. In regards to the second primary school, is very simple. The Brabham Primary School that is currently in Brabham right now, we already have 7 kindergarten classes in there as well. The Department of Education is already looking at building a second primary school. We just need to apply the pressure to the Minister of Education to build a second primary school. In regards to the active open space, in regards to my extra point, is very simple. Even though it has 26.2% public open space in the new structure plan in number 2, or the structure plan number 2, a lot of that is St Leonard's Creek, and a lot of it's not active playgrounds, not active play spaces for the children as well. Therefore, we're writing to the Minister of Planning to ask to have the ability to relook at how they define public open space, so we provide more opportunities for children to have further abilities to have adventure playgrounds, and etc. and stuff like that. The reasons why it's important as well is that we need to accept the recommendation, because what can happen also is that because the Department of Communities is owning this land, and will basically is subletting off to Pete to develop it, the Minister of Planning looks at our recommendation. Our recommendation also covers a lot of the environmental processes within this as well, such as the DEWA and also the DBCA as well. These government agencies have also looked in regards to the wetlands as well. They have added recommendations to the officers' they have added additional officers' recommendations, and the officers from the City of Swan have also accepted a lot of these as well. The environmental protections highlighted in Councillor Kiley's motions, I accept they're valid points, but they're also being covered by 2 independent government agencies. And also the drainage in regards to that as well has been covered off and has been looked at by DEWA and also DBCA as well. So I believe the environmental items have been covered within this motion as well. So that's why I'm supporting it as it is. I also believe that the state government needs to continue its significant investment within Brabham as well, and as well as the urban growth corridor as well, because we have a lot of young families in Brabham. 11.9% of the population of Brabham is between 0 and 9. In 10 years' time, they'll need a high school, and they need primary school or second primary school right now. They need it to be built, and they need these facilities to be provided by the state government. That's why I'm supporting this motion, and I ask you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Congleton.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Not required. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Parry, for raising some really important issues in the area. And I note that it is your ward, so you understand it possibly somewhat better than myself. The two issues you raise, and I thank you also for recognising the issues that I've raised are important, and what I'm going to try and do is combine the two to have them both looked into, and I'll explain why. When you say that you want the CEO to write to the Minister of Education, it's just as likely that he or she may turn around and say to the City of Swan, well, what do you expect me to do? You've just, in the same motion, approved the structure plan, so there's no way I can actually fit it in. They could also, the Minister for Planning could do a similar sort of thing in respect of public open space if there was a decision to be made there, that unless we give them the time to go away and actually think about the queries that you've raised, and very validly raised as well, we're not going to give... we're basically cutting our nose off to spite our face in that respect, and we won't achieve what you're trying to achieve, and the very good points you are trying to get answers to in respect of public open space and another school, high school within Brabham. So let's say, for example, the Minister for Education said, yeah, that's probably a good idea, I'll put a high school in that area, but hang on a second, you've just approved the structure plan. So I'm saying, if I could ask all councillors that what I will do is incorporate the 2 points that Councillor Parry has validly put forward, and I will incorporate them into my motion, but to refuse at the moment, and until such time as we get answers to these things, and plus the issues that I've raised as well in my motion in relation to the alignment of Henley Brook Avenue, Penage wetlands, effect on that, an ecological corridor, and the change for the R-coding spectrum in that area. Even if the ecological corridor was not permitted or was not going to be supported, it may be supported by us to consider it at least, but the WAPC will ultimately decide on what will go there and whether the Peat proposal is a preferred option. So I'd like to put it in there as a consideration for council, but I'm encouraging you to vote against Councillor Parry's motion, and then I will incorporate his concerns into my motion, but put it on hold basically until we get some answers to some of these really important questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Before I call for the next speaker, I just want to clarify a point that you made, Councillor Kiley, in relation to a primary school and a high school. If one of the planning staff can advise me, please, and council, is a second primary school planned for Brabham in the structure plan, and a high school, please? Mr van der Linde or Mr Russell?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, I can't speak to the high school, but what I can say is that the Department of Education have actually bought in the Henley Brook structure plan area that's only recently been approved. They've bought a site with the intention of placing a third primary school site in the Henley Brook structure plan area, which may well serve land further to the south. I'm not certain about a high school.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I can perhaps give an answer on that. The last part of the Peat development south of Yildeen Road includes a primary school and a high school site. So there is a high school site planned for that area.
Thank you. I'll now call for a speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor McNamara.
To staff with regard to the high school. Is it the Department of Education, taking into account that it's not going to be a private school, if it's going to be a public school, let's look at the Department of Education. Is it their priority or their prerogative to actually either buy the land or build on it rather than ours? Thank you.
Did you hear that question, Mr van der Linde or Mr Russell?
Yeah. Mr Deputy Mayor, yes. The high school site It's the prerogative of the Department of Education to buy the land for that. And I'm aware that the Department of Education is already in discussion with Pete to facilitate the correct location for such a site in the planning that's currently being done.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the motion, councillors? Councillor Catalano first, followed by Councillor Henderson.
Yes, thank you. I think Councillor Parry's the points he raises about the primary school issues, the high school issues and the public open space actually just add to a catalogue of fundamental problems with what's been going on in that growth corridor. And I think it's time that this council stopped rubber stamping these proposals through. We have a responsibility and we should take our responsibility seriously. I'm aware that, even if we refuse to endorse this structure plan, that the state government, WPC, whoever, is likely to give it the green light. Well, they're likely to give it the green light anyway, even if we make any conditions to the approval today. That's not the point. The point is that we have a decision to make in this chamber, and it's time that we actually got serious about the growth corridor because, frankly, it is a mess. And we'll just start with the objections and the petitioners that have come into this chamber and given deputations about the hideousness of what's been happening to our wildlife in that area. I mean, it has been an absolute shocker about what we've heard, young families in cars hitting kangaroos, dead kangaroos on the side of the road, kangaroos with arrows in their heads running around. I mean,
Councillor Catalano.
I have to say, these are things we've heard.
I can ask you to keep to the point.
The point is that
Thank you.
The point being is that the development along this corridor has gone on in an uncontrolled manner, and that is an example of uncontrolled development. And we are, as the city, having to put up with and hear these complaints as if we have anything to do with it. Well, guess what? We do have something to do with it, because right now we can oppose this structure plan. So we've got other things connected to this structure plan. If we approve it, there's going to be further loss of floral and fauna biodiversity in the area, and we're talking about wetlands and creeklands that should be protected because they're waterways. We live in a very dry continent and a very dry part of that continent, and we're not even protecting our waterways. There's not a sufficient enough buffer. DBCA have actually advised that the buffer's not sufficient. It can't be used as public open space, as Councillor Parry's already indicated. So it's not sufficient. We've already seen that in other suburbs such as Dayton. We've got basically public open space that's effectively a sumpland because it was once a swamp. That is just not good enough. So the other further thing that I want to add is that we've got density uncertainty as well. We don't actually know if we're actually going to get density of either 20, which was originally promised going back to the day, or whether actually we're going to get, R60 or higher. We have no idea. And the implications of that in terms of infrastructure, or shall I say lack of infrastructure in that area, is enormous. And we in this city are going to have to wear it. So right now we have to make a stand. We have to indicate to the state government that it's not good enough. So finally, we've got uncertainty about the construction of Henley Brook Avenue for very good reasons, because it's going to go straight through a Bush Forever site. These are incredibly important environmental values that we in the city have acknowledged in our biodiversity strategy, in a sustainability strategy, and we have to stick with our strategies. So we have to say to the state government this time round, well, actually to the proponents, but that we can't accept it. And it's up to the state government. If they want to go ahead and tick it off, that's fine. Then it's on their shoulders. I know that at the end of the day, we've got economic and population drivers, and that's just one of those things that we do have, and I acknowledge it. But we've also got to weigh it up with the future of people's health in that area and the capacity of the city to manage that area with all its problems, even at this point in time, and also with the environmental health of the environment, but the people who live in it. So it's up to us to make the decision here today, councillors, and I implore you to refuse this one and resolve to recommend to the WAPC that we're not going to endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. Speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor McCulloch.
Point of order, Mr Deputy
What's
Mayor,
your
if
point
I
of order?
may make a retrospective point of order. According to 5.2, referring to 1D, just uncalled for regarding possible council motives or conduct, Councillor Catalano had stated that this council has got to stop rubber stamping developments. And I don't believe that is the truth. It is misleading, and it generally maybe lumps councillors and city staff into...
I take your point, Councillor.
Thank you.
McCulloch, have you made it at the time, but the time has passed, so we're going to move on, councillors. Councillors, any other speaker for or against? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, councillors. I'm speaking against. And for those that were listening to a debate in 1995, certainly Deputy Mayor was there at the time, there was considerable opposition to the development in the North East Corridor, particularly around the area that we're discussing today. To appease the community, a lovely village-style map was produced with quite low numbers, relatively low density, and to keep as much of the waterways in particular, because it is a Palace Plain area, in place. And so now we see the process has become one of how many houses can you squeeze in there, and how much land can you fill in, and how much of the waterways, which by the way have long-necked tortoise in them, how much of that can be filled in, and how much of it will effectively be unavailable to the community because it'll be waterways left over. We talk about a large percentage as public open space, but when it's all grown with reeds and the like, you can't get in there. Besides, the tiger snakes are very friendly. So the point I want to make is that we can stand here and talk all day about these things. In 1995, we ended up in front of the Minister, and the Minister, because the Council did say no then, and the Minister said, "You'll fix this or I will." So the Council rolled over. And the fact of the matter is, here we are again today, and I'm making a stand. I'm not going to support this. I'm not going to vote for it. It's gone way too far. We've got development of a scale that, as a former councillor Zek mentioned in emails to us, that you won't even get enough sunlight into your house because of the density. In other words, the house orientations aren't right. So the fundamentals around this are all about how much can you squeeze in there, as opposed to what is good development. So I won't carry on any further, Mr Deputy Mayor, other than to say that I think council's between a rock and a hard place. If we say no, it's going to happen anyhow. So that'll be the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Speakers for or against the motion. Councillor Parry, your right of reply, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. In 1995, I was only 11. I wasn't listening to the debate, unfortunately. In regards to the primary school, that's on page 219 under PS in the yellow, Councillor Kiley. So that's what I'm talking about in regards to that. That's why I'm asking for the acceleration of the primary school to be built in the structure plan number 2. In regards to the high school as well, that's in structure plan number 3, which is underneath as well, which I would safely assume that it would get through in the next 3 years as well. Hence why I'm asking for it. In regards to take our responsibility seriously, I think we all try and do that. Nobody's ever entirely happy with a structure plan. We're never going to find the perfect structure plan. I'll tell you what crime is worse though, councillors. We just let the Minister for Planning decide whatever she wants to decide rather than the recommendations given by our trained staff in regards to planning. That's a fact. I prefer that. I prefer the fact that we get environmental agencies to look at this properly through wetlands as well and look through the statutory requirements and then put the recommendation forward. Because if you refuse it straight away, it gives the Minister the opportunity to do what she feels necessary to do. That's a concern. Do you want to just basically, and in regards to taking the responsibility seriously, that's being responsible. That's actually being prudent in your actions. That's making sure that what you're trying to do is by the professional nature of our staff. That's important. You can't exactly just talk about ideologies. You need to be practical in your decision-making process. That's a fact. And it's not good enough. No, of course it's not good enough. I don't like 60, 80, 120 square metre blocks.
Sorry,
You've got
Councillor
a
Parry.
point of order, Councillor Kiley?
Yeah, just on the point where Councillor Catalan and myself, we're not talking about ideologies, and I think that's downplaying the importance of the issues we've raised.
I don't think I'm downplaying it.
That is no point of order. He's addressing your concerns raised during the debate. If you can continue, please, Councillor Parry.
And
Order, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Parry is implying improper motives to councillors, and I think he needs to keep his speech on track.
I've just reminded you of that, but there was no technical point of order. If you've got 1 minute left, thank you, Councillor Parry.
Correct. It is on their shoulders, as Councillor Catalan did state. She did say it's on the state government's shoulders. Of course it is. Minister of Planning is going to finalise this decision. It's our job to be prudent, and that's what our officer's recommendation is currently trying to do. We just can't refuse for the sake of refusal. That's not being responsible. Not to me, that's not being responsible at all. I think that's not the way to do business. Hence why I'm supporting the officer's recommendation. Also adding these 2 recommendations as well because it benefits the community as well. If we're going to ask young families to buy affordable housing, we need to have this infrastructure necessary to do the job. It's whether you like it or not. The school is required and we need better playgrounds. And we've said this all, by the way, councillors, in regards to 411, in regards to the February meeting as well. Councillor Congdon and I raised Brabham densities issues. We've talked about these issues
15
before.
seconds left.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. It's not like we haven't been consistent in regards to this issue, councillors. We can't stop the state government or the Minister of Planning to decide what she wants to decide. We have used our staff correctly, and we will follow. I ask you to follow the recommendation because they know what they're doing. They also know the department.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. The council's implying that we don't know what we're doing. So it's it's use of offensive or indecent or insulting expressions regarding
There's
motive
no
or
point
conduct.
of order because the same accusations were levelled against him when other councillors were speaking. You have 5 seconds left, Councillor Parry, but I just want to remind all councillors, if you go to page 205 of the agenda, there's something like 25 conditions from the staff. It's not just the ones in this supplementary agenda, it's the staff recommendation plus these additional points. So it's not just these 2 points that Councillor Parry is discussing, and that's why he's referring to the staff recommendation. You've got 5 seconds, Councillor Parry. Use them wisely.
Move for another minute, Mayor.
I'll be more than happy to take it.
Well,
Point E,
going.
that the structure plan and supporting documents be revised to a minimum 30 metres separation distance, Stately Lands Creek. Point F, the structure plan map and supporting documents are to be revised to provide a minimum 50 metres separation distance. That staff recommendation is looking after the environment. Councillor Kiley's intention is true, and I don't deny that. But in saying that, that's what the staff's pretty much already done with a minor tweak in regards to it. That's important. That's what's been prudent. That's what's been responsible, and that's what needs to be done. So I ask you to support my motion, and I put it to a vote, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Those in favour of Councillor McCulloch, Jones, Parry, Congdon, myself and Zanino, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The motion is lost. Did you get those names, Danica? Councillor Kiley, you've got an alternative.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll be brief. And I think we've had a really good debate about this, and I thank Councillor Parry for the points he's made. I think he might be under the wrong belief that I wasn't in support of the points he was making, and in fact, I want to include them in my motion. That we do write to the Minister for Education requesting what Councillor Parry has suggested, and we do write to the Minister for Planning. But I want to refuse the application at the moment and put in points 1, 2 and 3. But I'm actually going to debate without reading my motion, Mayor. And my motion is that Council resolve to recommend that the Western Australian Planning Commission refuse to endorse the proposed Brabham second stage local structure plan, and for the application to be resubmitted when the following have occurred. I'll include Councillor Parry's point 2 and 3 from his motion, and mine would be also 1, until such time as discussions with staff and the WAPC can determine if the alignment of a future Henley Brook Avenue can be moved further away from Penage wetlands, which would have implications for the proposed subdivision layout. 2, provide for an ecological and water flow corridor, including setbacks following the natural path of the water from Penage wetlands through to St Leonard's Creek. And 3, reduce the R zoning spectrum from R20 to R20 to R40, with the exception for an area that might be set aside for an aged care facility to remain up to R60.
Thank you. Just before I call for a second to Councillor Kiley, I just want to ask either Leon or Phil any implications of refusing the structure plan.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I think it's important to note the decision to determine or to approve or refuse the structure plan isn't with the council, it's with the West Australian Planning Commission. All this motion constitutes is a recommendation to the Commission not to approve the structure plan.
Thank you. Call for a seconder to the motion. Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? You wish to debate it, Councillor Congdon?
No, but I have a question if I can.
Question?
The insertion of 1.2 and 1.3 of Councillor Parry's motion to be inserted into Councillor Kiley's motion. Can you tell me how you're going to introduce that so the words are consistent with your recommendation? Because at this stage,
Thank you. If you can answer that,
Thanks, Councillor Congdon. If you note the wording of my motion, it states the application to be resubmitted when the following have occurred, and this would we wouldn't be able to. Well, we're telling Pete to effectively resubmit the application when Councillor Parry's letters to the Minister of Education and Minister of Planning have gone ahead, and additionally the 3 points that I raise as well. So,
it's different on the board.
Where is it different on the board?
Well, it's not have occurred, it's point 2. Is that right, Dr. Mont?
Mr Mayor, would it be possible to ask the CEO to have a look at the reconstruction of 2 and 3, please?
I think he's just reading it now on his screen. Would it help if the words request the CEO and just have the CEO write to?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that'd be easy. Yeah.
So
take out request to. So the CEO would write.
Just remove the request from those 2 items.
And
They'll
it
be,
separates when the following have occurred to just request. They stand alone.
and those 2 items become 4 and 5. We just want to get it right before we put it to the vote. Thank you, councillors.
Question, was it not better as it was prior to that edit?
That's fine. I'll withdraw my against as well, Mr Mayor.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Kiley?
I am, Mayor. Thank you for tidying
Thank
that
you.
up.
Councillor McNamara, you have a question?
Yes, I'll put this in the form of a question. Is Council aware that I may and I will move the officer's recommendation if this one fails? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. I'll ask again, is there anyone against? You're against, Councillor McNamara? You wish to debate it? Okay, I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favour? I have Councillor Henderson, Jones, Catalano, Kiley, Zanino, Johnson, Prodovnik and Richardson. The motion is carried. The rest of the council was against. Thank you, councillors. That takes us to item 4.7, additions to existing microbrewery, restaurant and shop, West Swan Road, Henley Brook. Councillor Zanino.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I move that the council resolve to 1. Refuse the application for additions to an existing microbrewery, restaurant and shop, Lot 2, number 8731, West Swan Road, Henley Brook, for the following reason. 1. The proposed additions of sea containers as permanent structures are considered to be inconsistent with the rural character and visual amenity of the locality. A reason for changing the officer's recommendation: the application is inconsistent with the planning objectives of Area B of the Swan Valley Planning Act 1995, specifically Clause 8.6, the compatibility of design, siting and landscaping with the character of the area.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. That takes us to the next item, councillors. Item 4.8, additions to existing restaurant cafe, Stirling Street, Guildford. It's on page 251. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to refuse the application for the additions to the existing restaurant cafe at Lot 194, number 24, Stirling Street, Guildford, for the following reason. The proposed shed is part of the existing unapproved garden centre on the land, and a garden centre is a use that is not permitted, X, within the residential zoning applicable to the land under the City of Swan Local Planning Scheme number 17.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Prodovnik. Do I have anyone against? I do. You wish to debate it? Yes. Councillor Johnson, you've got 3 minutes for your debate. 5 minutes, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, many councillors will recall the amazement when it was discovered that the cafe, garden centre and office at 24 Stirling Street, Guildford, did not have any development approval, despite operating since before 2015. So it's 3 separate uses, no approval. An approval has since been given, I think in September 2019, for the cafe. I believe the City, as we heard, is still awaiting a scheme amendment to allow the garden centre to approve, and also awaiting a development application and possibly also a scheme amendment for the office on the first floor. Now, we have a second retrospective application, this time for a shed that was erected in September 2020 and reported to the City by local residents. Investigations showed that there had not been a development application submitted. Now, councillors, by this time, the owner, Mr Noonan, was well aware of the need for a development application, and he was also well aware that when submitting a development application, you also need to pay the fee, because otherwise it will not proceed. So he's well aware of the process. Now, councillors, as the report shows, it's only a small shed. It's painted a pretty blush pink with some nice frilly bits on it. It's not at all offensive. But the problem with it is that the application is for an addition to the existing restaurant cafe. But in fact, it is associated with the garden centre, which is an ex-use. It simply can't be approved at this location. The small shed is about 10 metres from the counter and till of the cafe, which the application says it is part of. It's clearly part of the garden centre. It's not an addition to the existing restaurant cafe. It's not what it says it is. It may be a very pretty small pink shed, but it's not part of the approved cafe. It's part of the garden centre business, which is not approved because it cannot be approved. It's an ex-use. There's no scheme amendment for it. We can't allow a garden centre in this location. And you heard the owner of the Guildford Garden Centre, just around the corner, explaining that she has gone through all the proper approval processes to get approval for her garden centre. And yet, at this particular location, 24 Stirling Street, there are 4 uses, there are 4 applications. 1 has been approved, and the 3 outstanding, of which we've got 1 before us now. Everyone else is following the rules here. This particular owner had to be advised, yet again, you need to bring a development application to council. So, councillors, in summary, our planning scheme does not allow a garden centre at this location, and that is the reason why this cannot be approved, because this shed is being used solely as a till location for selling plants. It's got nothing to do with the cafe. So, councillors, if you do value our planning scheme and you value our officers and the rule of law, you would vote to support my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prodovnik is the seconder.
I've got nothing more to add.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion? Any speakers against? Councillor McCulloch.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, we're looking at the additions to the existing restaurant cafe. And yes, I do value the rule of law in our planning. And during the public consultation, we did receive 4 submissions that cited concern with the proposed outbuilding being used in association with the unapproved garden centre. But that's not what we're talking about today on this site. For the purposes of housing FPOS facilities, the applicant has confirmed the proposed outbuilding going forward will not be used for the housing of FPOS facilities for the garden centre. We can also see that the proposal was assessed. It's considered to be compliant with deemed to comply design principles, provisions of R codes through our state planning policy, our local planning policy, the Guildford Conservation Precinct. It was assessed against requirements and it was found to meet all acceptable development provisions. Through our local planning policy C096, through the Drainage Development Fund, those fees will be adjusted and contributed in regards to that as well. So, councillors, yes, the applicant is seeking approval for a 6 square metre outbuilding located at the former Guildford Post Office building, and it is associated with the approved restaurant on the lot. It's considered generally compliant with policy C106. It's minor in nature. It is sympathetic to the predominant form of the existing development, and it's sited in such a manner that it causes the least disruption to the existing streetscape of Stirling Street, with the development to be located behind an existing hedge and not visible from the primary corner landmark vista. So, councillors, I encourage you to vote against this motion, and I will then, if this motion fails, move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Question, Councillor Kiley.
I'm confused. Councillor Johnson's saying it's an ex-use. Surely, and the recommendation from staff is to approve. An ex-use is an ex-use. Can I get an explanation from staff why on earth, if that's the case, they've even recommended approval?
Mr Russell.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The difference here is that the applicant has advised us that the additions in the form of this shed are to be used as additions to the approved restaurant use of the premises. The motion from Councillor Johnson is suggesting that is not in fact the case, as you've heard, and he is saying that the use of that shed is associated with the garden centre, which is not approved and at the present time under the scheme is incapable of being approved. So the difference that you have is, on the one hand, we're saying the applicant has applied for additions to the restaurant and this shed is used in conjunction with the approved restaurant use, and the alternate motion here is to say no. The motion is saying no, that's not the case. The shed is actually used in conjunction with the garden centre, which is an ex-use. So that's the differences between the staff recommendation and the alternate motion, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Kiley.
Yeah, just to follow up, have we got any kitchens in this shed? Are there any kitchens or cutlery stands, or what are we using the shed for?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, in the interest of being diligent, which I do like to be, I went down there this afternoon at approximately 4:15. I wandered in. There was no one there, and I had a good old poke my head into the shed. There are no kitchens. There is a desk. There is a shelf. And there was some ordinary office equipment on the desk and some bits and pieces on the shelf. That's as much as I could observe from a cursory inspection, but there's certainly no kitchens in there.
Follow up again, Mayor. Is it normal that we would approve something without a health inspector going around to see whether it complies with the restaurant use, seeing it would be supposedly used for food service?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, there's not actually, it's not, as I said, it's not part of the kitchen. It's used as, the application is stating it is used to pertinent for administrative capacity associated with the restaurant, not as a food preparation area. If they were to seek to use it as a food preparation area in any form, then certainly they will need to make the appropriate applications to our environmental health section for that.
Any other speakers to the item? Councillor Congdon.
I have a question to the staff, please. In the event that the officer's recommendation is approved and Councillor Johnson's is dismissed, and it's proved to be in this facility used for other purposes than others stated, what are the consequences or actions the city can apply to that business?
Thank you, Mr Russell.
Thank you, Mr Deputy
Mayor.
Mayor.
I'd let you go.
Quite simply, if someone applies for something and says they're going to do something and they're fully aware, and I've spoken to Mr Noonan, the owner, and made it very plain to him the situation he is in and what he must be doing and what he must not be doing, if he thumbs the nose at the council and the city, then he will face the consequences. And there are a long list of people in this jurisdiction within the City of Swan that have been in the wrong end in the Magistrates Court and have been taken to task appropriately, and assuredly they've learnt their lesson, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, you had a question?
Thank you. A question through you, Deputy Mayor, to staff, to Mr Russell. Currently the business is using the shed for plant purchases. At the moment, cash in hand is being handed over into that shed. Is that part of the current use for?
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, look, that is the allegation that's been made, and I do appreciate that. And when the owner came in, I said it's been put to us that you are using the shed as a payment facility associated with the garden centre. And I said that can't be approved. So if you have that building there, then and look, I'm not disputing that, and it may have been used previously for that. It may well have been, I'm not disputing that. But this application that he's applied for simply cannot be approved on that basis. So it's made plain he's got to cease the use of the shed as a payment facility associated with the garden centre. Now, when I went down there this afternoon, I didn't see anyone in there taking transactions from customers purchasing from the garden centre. And so there was nothing that I observed to suggest that what Mr Noonan had said to me he had ceased doing had not ceased at all. So that's as far as I could ascertain this afternoon. No one's suggesting that it hadn't been the case. Moving forward, if the staff recommendation is adopted, if he's using it other than pertinent to the restaurant and he's using it pertinent to the garden centre, then he'll be in breach.
Further question, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr Russell. Would photographic evidence of purchases made this week by public members be, how would we use that particular photographic evidence then that it was in breach? Purchases that were made for pot plants handed over with cash.
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Well, if the council is satisfied that there is, at least on the face of it, some evidence that up to this point, and certainly subsequent to my discussions with Mr Noonan, that shed is still being used as a payment facility for the garden centre, then I would suggest it might move forward with some confidence in the motion that Councillor Johnson has submitted. But even if that is the case, that the council decides to give the applicant the benefit of the doubt and approve it, and post the point of approval, if it was this evening, it's then found to be used as a payment facility to the garden centre at, say, 10 o'clock tomorrow. Well, not 10 o'clock tomorrow, you'd have to wait for the issue of an approval. But subsequent to that, 10 o'clock Monday, for example, after the approval had been granted to him conceivably, and it's being used as a garden centre, then he assuredly would be in breach of that, and you can expect, I suppose, the consequences.
Another question through you, please, Deputy Mayor, to Mr Russell. That photographic evidence was taken this week. Why would we give lenience then till Monday to the owner? How long do we need to wait, or why would we give an extra few days for them to cease trading when it's already been occurring?
Mr Russell.
Well, the salient point here, I suppose, is at this point in time, okay, what you would say is, you could take some action already. You issued him with the notice, okay, to cease and desist. We'd probably take it off to the SAT. All that, in any event, would be occurring post a decision on this application. So, assuredly, make no mistake, the council is free, as I said, that if there is evidence taken to date that supports the proposition that it has been used right up until this very week, or even up till today, as a payment facility for the garden centre, then all that does is speak to the veracity of Councillor Johnson's motion. That irrespective, and you can go either way on this, but irrespective into the future, even if it's approved, then, it's very easy to ascertain, and as I said, it wouldn't require more than me to go down there and purchase the plant as evidence that it's a breach. It would be very easy to detect, and then, of course, the breach of the scheme is evidenced.
Further question, Councillor Richardson.
Further question. Question to Mr Russell through you. Just like to remind all councillors that on the City of Swan own Facebook page, it shows the cafe pay station is not in the shed. We have photographic evidence from this week of public members purchasing pot plants and handing cash over to the attendant. Would you like us to submit that evidence tonight and show staff? Or, again, which direction do we go with the particular evidence that we have?
Well, we're debating the item. Councillor Scanlon, you would have had ample opportunity to present it.
Sorry, not Councillor Scanlon, it's Councillor Richardson.
Councillor Richardson.
Are we able to produce that evidence here tonight?
Well, I think it's too late to introduce evidence of that type. You'll have to make a decision. I see your hand, Councillor Johnson. I'm just giving a ruling to Councillor Richardson. The bottom line, as I see it, councillors, up until this is either approved or refused. If it's approved tonight, then as from the time that the licence is issued or granted, then all application to the garden centre must cease, even if it was today. Nothing's been approved at this point in time. So, Councillor Johnson, you had a question?
I've just got a question, Mr Mayor, through you to all councillors. Have you received, councillors, the email from Stephanie Radis that you got yesterday at 10:21am that was entitled Additions to the Existing Restaurant, Lot 1, 94 Stirling Street, that contains photographs showing the inside of the shed being used for flower sales? It's the evidence is right in front of you. So this is not a change of use.
I'm going to ask, are there any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Kiley.
Just a follow-up question, Mayor. I'm sorry to take up Council's time. Mr Russell suggested that they would face the full extent of our means to deal with unapproved developments, but I'm interested in the Planning and Development Act 2005, Section 222, which is pretty easy to remember. Developments in heritage places, that the person who commences, continues or carried out development or causes or permits any development to be commenced, continued or carried out affecting land in a heritage area, the penalty under the Planning and Development Act is $25,000 a day. I'm just wondering if that's the extent to which we will be enforcing our rights. General penalty under 223 of the Planning and Development Act 2005.
Mr Russell.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. You certainly, look, there's a couple of provisions in the Planning and Development Act. There's the general provisions in relation to use or development of land unlawfully. Then, as Councillor Kiley has highlighted, you have the additional provisions in relation to the same effect in heritage areas. I suppose, and yes, the ordinary provisions in terms of penalties are quite substantial on a daily rate and a maximum rate. Certainly for businesses, several years ago they were increased. All of those heads of power are available and come into play in terms of a breach. I might add, I suppose, that as has been put, I don't think it's so much the physical built form development of the shed that's the problem. It's the use of the shed and the use of the land. The question is whether that's causing any particular adverse impact to the heritage of the Guildford area. Might be a different question, but certainly under our planning scheme and under the Planning and Development Act, it would be using the land unlawfully. And those have the ordinary penalties that apply for that, and all of that is possible. I would note that, like all penalties that exist in legislation, it is a very rare instances that the maximum penalties are ever imposed by a magistrate. Even those willing to do so have usually been found to have their penalties reduced on appeal. But it's a stated penalty up to a maximum, and a court can apply that if it sees fit in the first instance.
Councillor Henderson, you're speaking, or you have a question?
A question, if I may. Deputy Mayor, it may be that there's been a breach. I'm not aware of that, but an approval hasn't been given yet. Is that right? And until an approval is given and they receive that in writing, then those aspects of compliance would come into place after that. Is that right?
That's my understanding. We'll get Mr Russell to confirm.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, it is possible to prosecute for activities that have occurred unlawfully prior to the retrospective application. Now, so you can do that. You could say, well, on the basis of the evidence that's been contended is available at this point in time around the past use, which is unlawful, you could take court action against the owners for that breach up to the present, okay, if you've got sufficient evidence. Generally speaking, they've done the right thing in lodging an application here, and as has been pointed out, the salient point for us would be at this juncture, if having got a determination, lodged an application and, for instance, got a refusal, and then they still operated in breach of that refusal, then you can give a direction to cease and desist, and or you can take proceedings into the magistrates' court. So it is generally the case that we leave it, as has been pointed out, and not least by yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, that we wait until there's a decision on this and then we proceed from there.
Okay, councillors, time's moving on. Are there any other speakers for or against this item? No other speakers. Councillor Johnston, you've got 3 minutes for your right of reply, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think we need to begin by emphasising, councillors, that a garden centre in an area zoned residential is an ex-use. It's fundamentally an ex-use. You shouldn't even be contemplating voting for it. So I hope no councillors are going to do that. Councillors, what we've got here is a retrospective application for a shed which simultaneously is going to change its use. So it's been built without any planning authority. It's been used unlawfully as a till for a garden centre, and now suddenly it's going to become part of a cafe. As Councillor Carley pointed out, there have been no health and safety regulations, no inspection of this to determine it's suitable to be part of a cafe. It's 10 metres away from the cafe till. It's a completely self-contained, independent building. The photographs you've seen from Steph Radis show, if you care to look at them, show it's being used with plant materials in there. So it's currently being used as a till for a garden centre. Now, we've heard from Mr Russell that there will be consequences if he doesn't use it as a cafe, continues to use it as a garden centre. But Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor, for over 5 years, there have been no consequences for this owner for the various retrospective applications and failures to apply for development consents, failure to apply for scheme amendments, and no action whatsoever has ever been taken. So I don't believe there would be any consequences. So I think it would be quite extraordinary and unique, and people would start to ask questions if anybody were to vote for this. The garden centre is simply unlawful. And one suggestion that was made was, we need to give him the benefit of the doubt. Well, how many times has this particular applicant been given the benefit of the doubt? How many times has he run businesses that he doesn't have approval for on that premise, or somehow not quite managed to submit the right application, or submitted the application but forgot to submit the fee, or simply forgot to do it, or decided not to do it? So, councillors, we don't have someone who is in the category of well-meaning people for whom we need to give the benefit of the doubt. We've got someone who's built a shed.
Point of order, Mayor. I don't think that's an appropriate comment to be making.
Thank you. I'll ask you to withdraw that comment, Mr. Councillor Johnson.
What did I say that was a problem?
You said...
he wasn't in the category of a well-meaning people.
I think it's getting a bit derogatory, so if you can withdraw that statement, we can...
All right, I'll withdraw that. He's not in the category of development applicants that has a unblemished record. So he certainly doesn't have an unblemished record, which is what I'm trying to point out. He's not, and someone who does not have an unblemished record should not be getting the benefit of the doubt. So, councillors, I would strongly advise voting against this one. It's an excuse. It's completely contrary to our planning scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I put it to the vote, councillors, regardless whether Mr Noonan or the applicant has had issues before council before, you can only base your planning decision on this item before council, just as other people, perhaps in the Swan Valley, have made numerous retrospective applications, and retrospective applications must be looked at as if it's a new application, so there should be no bias put on that. So I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour? It's Councillor Johnson, Councillor Brodovnik, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley and myself. That is 6. The motion is lost. I need a motion, councillors. Councillor Congredon. Oh, sorry, I did have a foreshadowed motion from Councillor McCulloch. You're seconding that, Councillor Congredon? Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it?
My question.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, my question really relates to a declaration of interest relating to impartiality. I understood it was pointed out to me at the beginning of the meeting that this has changed recently and there's been an expansion of the categories of interest. I wonder if the CEO could advise us, because I wasn't aware of the change. It means anyone who's a member of an association would need to declare an interest. Can you just advise us in general terms?
Can you clarify your question a little bit more for clarity for the CEO to answer the question?
Well, I'm a member of the Guildford Association, and I've never previously declared that as an interest. I also asked on Section 10 whether other organisations were considered to be membership of those was considered to be something that needed to be declared. So that's all I'm asking. Has the law changed recently, and do all councillors understand it?
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, I'm not aware of any changes to interests of impartiality. They remain the same, and the interest of impartiality for declaration is one that a councillor chooses to make.
So, Did you wish to debate it, Councillor Johnson? Or any councillors wish to debate it? Otherwise, I'm going to put it to the vote. So, putting to the vote, the officer's recommendation is moved by Councillor McCulloch and seconded by Councillor Congdon. Those in favour of Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Jones, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Congdon, Councillor Parry and Councillor Zanino. That is 7. The motion is passed. The other 6 councillors were against. Have I got the numbers right? I think so. Okay, moving on to the next item, councillors, is item 4.10, extension of the aged care facility and consulting rooms, Great Northern Highway, Middle Swan. It's on page 276, and Councillor Catalano.
Yes, thank you. So once again, it's going to be adopt the officer recommendation with a condition 8 amended to read, prior to the lodgement of a building permit application, the applicant shall prepare and have approved a drainage management plan which shall incorporate tree pits and biofiltration mechanisms to the car parking area to the satisfaction of the City of Swan on advice from the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions. And the reason for that is because currently the drainage plan doesn't have those particular tree pits and biofiltration mechanisms, and that is something that DBCA stipulated or specified.
Do I have a second? Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. Yes, as I just mentioned, the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions have advised the city that the drainage management plan for the site, in fact, needs to incorporate tree pits and biofiltration mechanisms for the stormwater from the area. And this is not specified in the current motion, and in fact it wasn't even specified in the application when it first went to JDAP in 2019. So currently we have quite a large, well, it is actually a large development, and it's going to be larger as it proceeds, and we don't have the stormwater treatment that the DBCA is being very specific about. Now, this is not a silly idea from the DBCA. In fact, they are concerned about the health of the Swan River ultimately, and we are upstream, and we're upstream of millions of other Perth people, and once again, we have a responsibility to make sure that the water that drains, the stormwater that drains into the Swan River, is effectively as free of contaminants, pollutants, and nutrients as possible. Also, there's another extra dimension to this, in as much as there is also a threatened ecological community. That's a floral community, and it's threatened because, you know what, very few of them exist. They were once widespread across the Swan Coastal Plain, or on that escarpment area, and unfortunately we've moved in, and we are now down to the last of the last. That is why it's a threatened ecological community, and that is why it's protected by the federal government legislation. And once again, stormwater cannot just be discharged into that threatened ecological community with contaminants and pollutants, and also it can't be discharged into there because it'll alter the hydrology and therefore the integrity of that particular floral community. So getting back to the Swan River, the stormwater, if it was just to drain down a pipe and connect to the city's drainage system and discharge into the creek and then discharge into the river and ultimately go out to the sea, that is going to take all the contaminants from the car parks straight in to the creek, straight in to the river. And that's what we've got to avoid. I just want to let you know that I do actually know of subdivisions, not very far from here, in fact, right in the centre of Midland here, where, in fact, we have stormwater. It was a subdivision that was approved 20 years ago, but anyway, currently the situation stays the same, where we have effectively a concrete pipe from which stormwater directly discharges into the big Blackadder Creek wetland out there, which directly discharges into the Swan River. It's taking all of those, hydrocarbons, all those herbicides that's coming off that subdivision straight into the river. It exists. I mean, I could show you if you wanted to, if you were interested, but you can take my word for it. That's been doing that for 20 years, and I'm sure it's not alone. So we've really got to take some extra measures now, start taking some extra measures. And ultimately, I think the City of Swan's reputation is on the line here, because we should be able to, stand up straight and abide by the recommendations and the specifications that the DBCA is making to us, and putting in these extra, asking the applicant in this particular case to put in those extra tree pits and biofiltration mechanisms to ensure that the stormwater is as free of pollutants and contaminants as is possible before it drains into the city's network and drains into the creek and into the Swan River and out to sea. Now, finally, once again, we've got our biodiversity strategies, and we've also got the sustainable environmental strategy that's just been out for public consultation. And water quality, I'd just like to remind you, is one of the important focus areas of that sustainable environmental strategy. And it highlights that there is a need for improvements to water that discharges from the drainage network into the city's creeks and rivers. So here's our opportunity to start improving and really coming up to speed with what are effectively basically high standards that are set by DBCA. These are, they're the sort of standards that we should be meeting. That's the best practice, is what I'm trying to say. It's time for us to actually reach these best practices and ask developers to just go that little bit of that extra mile and recognise that they're adjacent to a very sensitive floral community, and that, in fact, their stormwater, their waste, their stormwater needs to be discharged into the city's drainage system and ultimately the creeks and the river in a way that minimises the amount of pollutants and contaminants going down into that system, and thereby maintaining the health of the Swan River for us here in the City of Swan, but also for all of those millions of people downstream. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kyle is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. From my take on it, councillors, this was the advice from the DBCA anyway. We're not going the extra mile. We're actually just stating, I think Councillor Catalano is actually just stating a fact of the application anyway, that it would be submitted back to council prior to approval, or if it got approved, and then that we would adhere to the DBCA advice and put in those drainage pits and biofiltration systems anyway. So for me, it's a bit. I think Councillor Catalano is just trying to be clear in what we have to do, and I think it's a good initiative that we actually put it in the approval, so we show the applicant that it is important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Question, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. This is to staff. Mr. Vanderlyn, could you just advise whether once the normal drainage plan goes in, would DEWA not, before they sign off, would they not, if they deemed it necessary, request that they have tree pits and biofiltration?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If the Department of Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions have had a condition in their comments that these issues have to be addressed in a drainage plan, and a drainage plan is required, they then will assess that drainage plan against those comments that they've provided. So you would think that they will then ensure that that is implemented. And I think from a drainage perspective, one must just be careful. This application is basically an extension of the broader aged care facility, which extends onto the other properties. So from a drainage perspective, the runoff from this property may run into the adjacent property and could be filtered there and not necessarily on this site. I don't know. That's detail that will sit in the drainage plan, which will include the neighbouring site and this site. That's what I think will happen. And having that condition on this specific lot may not be practical if the biofilters is located on the adjacent lot. I don't know whether that could be the case.
Thank you. Just before I call for any other speakers, if you refer to page 281, and it's about the fourth paragraph down, councillors, it says the DBCA recommend that tree pits and biofilters are incorporated in the parking area to capture and treat runoff before it is detained in the detention system below the car park. They also suggest that swales could be incorporated in the landscaping to allow for natural conveyance and evaporation rather than piping all to the detention system. The drainage plans submitted with this application show the existing drainage plan for building number 1 but do not adequately depict the new overall layout. Therefore, this will form a condition of planning approval. Condition 8 of the officer's recommendation is prior to the lodgement of a building permit, the applicant must prepare and have approved a drainage management plan to the satisfaction of the City of Swan on the advice of the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attraction. So I think Councillor Catalano's motion is just, I suppose, doubling up on the officer's report, and there should be no objection to it. It's just making clear on this item that the DBCA's previous statement that they recommend those two things should occur. So I'll ask, is there any councillors against? Councillor Congdon, you wish to debate? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your words in relation to items in the agenda. Interestingly, it mentions under that section a recommendation, not an instruction. On page 288, where it states that prior to lodgement of a building permit application, the applicant shall prepare an approved drainage management plan. So if they go ahead and provide that management plan, then it may contain issues to do with tree pits and biofiltration systems. The applicant has sent an email to me today which saying they were happy with condition 8 in the officer's report on the basis it would be determined with the officers, and for building 1 no requirement was requested regarding advice from the Department of BCA. At the time of the subdivision, the WAPC requested comments back from the department, and they came back with a lot of information and the requirements regarding Blackadder Creek, which is nowhere near the subject site. The recommendation of the department was not supported by the WAPC, and this was not a condition of the subdivision. As part of the master plan approval and included in the DA approval for building 1, it's notation confirming the drainage to future development of lot 3, now lot 100, would connect to the approved system for building 2. The drainage management plan referred to in condition 8 is the same DMP as already approved. The DA for building 2 considered does not require an alternative motion, as Condition 8 has already been approved with the original DMP. There is further correspondence, Mr Deputy Mayor, that would indicate that the area is not conducive to a water-sensitive urban design, a WSUD, principles for disposal of stormwater drainage due to its tight confines and lack of landscaping spaces. The stormwater drainage generated primarily from the roof drainage, which could be considered to be clean, and there's also little need to cleanse flows. Practically, flows need to be discharged onto the ground to drain through the various cleansing media to subsoil pipes where it's then drained. This would be difficult to manage for a roof drainage system. Excuse me. Additionally, a gravity connection to the site system currently for construction for Building 1 would be difficult to achieve into consideration to cover the subsoil pipes and reaching connection points. The fallback is pumping arrangement for stormwater as well as landscaping management plan, for which both would require ongoing maintenance and additional capital costs. But I think the report covers on number 8 on 288 and number 9 on 289 and number 12 on 289 the requirements of a building permit application approval. And that really should all be required. And if it does in fact require tree pits and biofiltration, that will come up through the approval process, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Then Councillor Catalano, your right of reply, please.
Yes, thank you. Look, at the deputation, at the agenda forum last week, I got some very, what I thought, well, it was, to my mind, contradictory advice when I asked about how the stormwater is going to be dealt with. And on one hand, I was told that there's going to be swales and, it was clay soils and it was going to be swales. And then on the other hand, I was told that it's going to drain straight into the city's drainage system and that was going to go into the creek and that was going to go into the river. So I propose this motion because I want to make sure that in this instance, because of the sensitivity of the area, and that water just can't just drain willy-nilly down into an environmental site adjacent, or it can't drain, just unfiltrated and untreated into the network, which ultimately does connect to the Blackadder Creek, and then into the river, that we put in place, or we just put this extra conditions in place so that the proponent, and it's for their benefit, knows that they've got to have a go at doing, or actually do these tree pits and biofiltration and put in these extra measures. Now, it may be difficult, and I mean, you know what, from here on, it's all going to be difficult because protecting and conserving and looking after the environment with the pressures that it is up against in terms of urban living, urban development, yes, it's going to be difficult, but we do have to protect the health of our waterways. We have to protect the health of the Swan River, and that starts now.
You have a minute left.
And that starts now. And that starts with actually adopting these best practices. They're not put out there for no reason at all. Yes, it might be a recommendation, but do you know what? It's the best practice. And it is necessary because we do have to maintain, or we have to start looking after, better looking after the water that we discharge into the river and the creeks, and also into the sensitive environmental areas that we have left in our suburbs and towns, and this is just a small step in that direction. This is how it's going to be from now on, guys. It is going to be like this. I mean, the city of Swan is going to be a very urbanised, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on any environmental qualities, areas with environmental qualities, and we're going to have to protect them, and we're going to have to protect those areas with best practice, and it will mean that we're going to have to ask our developers to just go that little bit extra, but at the end of the day, it'll be a great environment for them to do their business in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Johnson, Pradovnik, Richardson, Catalano, Kiley, Zanino, myself and McNamara. The motion is carried and there were 5 against. Takes us to the next item, councillors, which is item 4.13, amendment to number 191, local planning scheme to insert telecommunications infrastructure in the Vines. Councillor Zanino.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I move that the Council resolve to not proceed to initiate proposed amendment number 191 to the City of Swan's local planning scheme number 17 for the following reason. 1. The proposed rezoning for telecommunications infrastructure is in an inappropriate location and inconsistent with the character of the rural residential locality of the Vines and amenity of the Vines Resort, catering to tourists and visitors attracted to this premier destination within the City of Swan. Reason for changing the officer's recommendation: this application, if approved, would be detrimental to the tourism and recreation resort and residential uses that are permitted within special use zone number 3.
Thank you. I have a seconder, Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried, which takes us to the next item, which is item 4.15, group dwelling, Blue Gum Road, Beachborough. It's on page 355. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My motion, Council, is to refuse the application for the proposed group dwelling at lot 171, number 108, Blue Gum Road, Beachborough, for the following reason. The proposed group dwelling has a setback variation to 3 lot boundaries, and this variation to clause 5.1.3 of the Residential Design Codes of Western Australia will have an adverse impact on the amenity of the adjoining properties at number 1 Axelwood Place and numbers 2 and 4 Tea Tree Court, Beachborough. The reason for the motion: existing neighbours have a right to expect that we uphold the intent of the R codes.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. That takes us, councillors, to item 5.5, petition slip lane to shopping centre Chiara. It's on page 450 of the agenda. Councillor McNamara, you've declared a financial interest in this item, and I'll request that you leave the chamber when you're ready. We'll just wait for Councillor McNamara to leave the chambers, and then I'll hand over to you, Councillor Kiley. Uh, 5.5, it's on page 450, it's the slip lane.
Thank you, councillors. My motion is that the council resolve to 1. Defer this item to the ordinary meeting of council to be held on 9th of June 2021 to allow the petition organiser time to approach all businesses in the Chiara Shopping Centre to determine if there is interest in the option of contributing funding for a potential slip lane.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. Can we recall Councillor McNamara, please? Thank you. Short and sweet. Councillors, we're now on to item 7.1, CEO recruitment, performance review and termination standards and council policies. It's on page 522, and we need to deal with this item tonight. the CEO and all executive managers have declared a financial interest in this item and will be required to leave the chamber. At the time of coming to the meeting, I had the following nominations for this panel. They were Councillor Congdon, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Jones, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Scanlon, Councillor Parry and Councillor Catalano, and by in view of their role, the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor are automatically on this panel.
Mr Mayor, I wish to withdraw as well. Thank you.
So, Councillor Parry, you wish to withdraw your nomination? Thank you. I'll just
Sorry,
ask...
Mr Mayor, I didn't catch. Who else withdrew?
Just Councillor Parry.
Okay, thank you.
Just in relation to Councillor Scanlon and her absence, does that make her your winner out?
No, you can vote for her if you wish. She's nominated. You don't have to be present. So I'll hand over to Ms Albrecht, and I believe we've got a secret ballot to undergo.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. So our minute clerk is just going to print out the nomination forms. So there are 3 positions available on the review panel. So you will have 3 votes, and we will then tally the votes, and the 3 councillors with the highest number of votes will fill those 3 positions, and then that will become part of the motion, which the council will then vote on. So we'll just print out those forms and deliver them to you, and then we'll do the vote.
Thank you. We'll just wait while we have the ballot papers distributed. Thank you. Now, councillors, I did discuss with the CEO and Ms Albrecht prior to the meeting that in the event of a tie for that 3rd position, so if candidates coming in at number 3 and number 4 on exactly the same votes, it could be determined that the council will accept 1 additional panel member. But if it's a clear-cut result without a tie for the 3rd position, then we'll just go with the 5. Okay, have your ballot papers. If you can only mark 3 on the ballot paper with a tick as requested. Thank you, Amanda. Yes. So we should have 13 ballot papers, is my understanding, and if you can, in a clear voice, call the results out using the microphone so it's audible for the recording. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I confirm that I've got 13 ballot papers here. I'll now read out the votes. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley. I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson. I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congdon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson. I have one vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congdon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congdon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano, I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano, I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congerton, I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson, I have one vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congerton, I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson, I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congerton, I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Congerton, I have 1 vote for Councillor Henderson, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano, I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano, I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley, and I have 1 vote for Councillor Scanlon. So by my tally, and please someone correct me, I have got Councillor Henderson with 8 votes, I have Councillor Congerton with 7 votes, and then I have a tie for 4 people on 6 votes. So Councillor Catalano, Jones, Kiley and Scanlon have all got 6 votes. Did I get that correct?
That's what I had.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So, does anyone, I suppose the first question, Mr Deputy Mayor, maybe, does anyone wish to withdraw their nomination of those 4 that are tied? No?
No, the answer's no.
Okay, so we'll do another vote for the 4 that are tied.
Thank
All
you.
right, Danica, could you prepare that for me, please? Thank you. I'll put these away. So just to clarify, this time round you will have 1 vote.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, if you can resume your seat.
I confirm I have 13 ballot papers. I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have another vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Catalano. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. I have 1 vote for Councillor Kiley. I have 1 vote for Councillor Jones. So I have 6 for Councillor Jones, 4 for Councillor Catalano and 3 for Councillor Kiley.
Thank you. After that ballot, councillors, I then will need a motion that we adopt the establishment of the CEO performance review with the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, with Councillors Congdon, Henderson and Jones. Moved Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried, and I thank you for your indulgence in that ballot process. Right, moving on to item 8.1, annual meeting of electors. Consideration of motions is on page 542 of the agenda. Now, I apologise in advance, and this may appear a little bit convoluted. Oh, yeah. Do we have to?
It was nice and
Councillor
quiet.
Johnson, on your way out, can you ask the CEO and other exec managers to come in? Thank you. So this may appear a little bit convoluted, councillors, but just work through the process and assist me. And if I need assistance, I'll call on Mr. Albrecht. So approvals required for Councillor Johnson to participate under section 5.681B of the Act, and is intended to be sought. So for that to occur, the following steps need to be undertaken to deal with this item. 1, Councillor Johnson has declared the nature of his interest previously. 2, a councillor is to move a motion seeking that council allow Councillor Johnson to participate. However, Councillor Johnson will need to leave the chamber while Council considers this request, which he's already done so. And then 2, Council needs to decide in the interest of A, the matter is so trivial or insignificant as to unlikely to influence the disclosing member's conduct in relation to the matter, or B, is common to the significant number of electors and ratepayer. And you'll note that Ms Albrecht has said it should be item A, because it's not common to most a significant number of electors or ratepayers. And then Council needs to determine the extent of the participation permitted. And 4, Councillor Johnson may then re-enter the chamber and to participate to the extent permitted by Council. Have you got a motion, Councillor Kiley?
It is. I have, Mayor, that Council resolve to 1, that the interest disclosed by Councillor Johnson is so trivial or insignificant as to be unlikely to influence the disclosing member's conduct in relation to the matter. 2, permit Councillor Johnson to participate to the following extent. 1, not permitted to move a motion specifically in regard to motion 4. 2, not permitted to debate any motion specifically in regard to motion 4. And 3, may vote on the proposed deferral motion and or any motion on any individual motion from the annual meeting of electors with the exception of motion 4.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Prodovnik.
Can you please just read out motions 24 and 25, because I'm not sure what we're referring to.
Motions 24 and 25. The only ones excluded from is motion 4, which is relating to St Jude's because he lives directly opposite. So he's only excluded from motion 4. And for clarity for online viewers at home, this is to consider some 34 motions from the annual meeting of electors, and Councillor Johnson cannot participate in one of those motions. So the seconder for that motion was Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, if we can recall Councillor Johnson to the chambers, please. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Just bring you up to speed. The Council has determined that you may participate in this item because we believe that your interest is trivial or insignificant as to unlikely affect the disclosing member's conduct. However, you are not to participate in any motion or permitted to move a motion specifically in regard to motion 4. Not permitted to debate any motion specifically in relation to motion 4, and may vote on the proposed deferral motion or any other motion or any individual motion from the annual meeting of electors with the exception of motion 4. Do you understand that? Yes, thank you. Councillor Kiley, have you got another motion?
I have, Deputy Mayor. I move that Council resolve to defer item 8.1, the annual meeting of electors consideration of motions to a special meeting of Council to be held on a date suitable recommended by the CEO to enable the motions to be considered individually by Council. And
can I ask if you have a date in mind, please?
I seek the guidance of the CEO on that one, Deputy Mayor.
Mr CEO.
Mr Deputy Mayor, we'd have to consider some dates going forward. I know we've got a pretty full agenda with briefings and that, so it would have to be similar to last week where it would be on a Tuesday or a Thursday in agreement with Council scheduling, so we could do that.
So are we going to put a date in this motion or are we going to leave it blank?
Mayor, if I could just leave that for the CEO to put some dates around to councillors and see what might suit. Okay.
Well, do I have a seconder to start with? Seconded Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it, Councillor Parry? Yes, please. Thank you. Then you've got 5 minutes for your debate, Councillor Kiley.
We're pressed for time, Mayor. I draw councillors' attention to the fact in the red folder we've got some issues, well, one issue in particular that must be dealt with tonight. So I request that you vote for this and we set these motions aside for another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And whilst that's been happening, while you've been talking, Councillor Kiley, the CEO has come up with a date of the 10th of May. Or the 17th.
What day of the week is that?
Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. Councillor Catalano is the seconder.
Yes, thank you. The thing about the items that came up in the annual electors meeting was that most of them have just been noted, and if we were to just accept that without any discussion, I think in a way I feel as if we were letting those electors down who came to the meeting and gave us their best effort, and more than that, I mean, they actually took the time. It's it's their volunteer time to come out and let us know what kind of motions they would like to see the city debate and discuss, the council to debate and discuss, and ultimately for the city, in their view, to hopefully adopt. I would really like council to defer much more to electors, to actually give them much more time, much more respect for the effort that they put in. Because I think that their input is absolutely critical for improving our performance, for improving what we actually provide and the services and the other things that we provide to electors. In return, I might say, for their rates. So I think out of respect for them having gone out of their way to do that, that we should actually just take a bit of time to actually discuss it in this chamber, and for the electors to see us discussing it, to hear them discuss it, for them to hear that we are taking their time and their ideas and their issues seriously. And I think this is the way forward for us to have that kind of engagement, or to sort of start having that kind of engagement and, shall I say, relationship with our electors, because I think that it will encourage electors to actually share with us much more their views about what we can improve, but not only that, have a very constructive and sort of like grab hold of their role as stakeholders in their own communities. And that's why I think that we should defer it tonight, so that we can actually sit down in this chamber and have a really good discussion about and debate about these motions, so that electors feel reassured that they haven't come along here to an electors' meeting and it's all been in vain. That is the most depressing scenario that I could possibly think of for the electors, and also for us as councillors, and also for the city. Let's improve that. Let's spend some time on it. Let's really start looking at engaging with our electors and ratepayers and residents in a much more constructive way, in terms of maintaining our relationship and respecting their views. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. You've timed that to perfection. I can now confirm that the 10th to the 17th of May is actually a Monday, councillors. Councillor Parry, you wish to speak
Can I just make a point about that Monday? It's Swan Valley Planning Committee meeting, so I won't be able to make that.
Well, you can either support or not support.
Deputy Mayor, my motion was that the CEO put out to councillors at a later date and determine a date at a later time, not to have one determined at this meeting. I think you might prejudice the vote by trying to come up with a date tonight.
I'll leave it to be determined then.
Thank you.
By the CEO. Councillor Parry, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Respect is also when you treat things with full investigation. So that's also important as well. When you discuss it with the ratepayers, you need to be fully informed. A month, 2 months is not enough to decide on these complex issues, such as Motion 6. So I bring attention to councillors Motion 6, if you don't mind, and page 499 as well, if you don't mind. For example, the city includes an update on divestment progress with breakdown by financial institution, all future annual reports, which I can live with. The City of Swan investigates moving its transactional accounts to Fossil Free Bank for the next financial year, starting July 21, which is very quick. And the City of Swan confirms to fully divest from fossil fuel financial institutions by the end of 2025. If you're willing to put a special council meeting over the next month or 2 months or 3 months, that may not be enough time to fully understand and respect the wishes of the ratepayer. These are convoluted problems and issues that we have to work through. The total investment that we have in the City of Swan is $278,049,482. How much if we say we go down the fossil fuel routes and actually decreases our return on investments? How much will that go down? 1% would decrease it by $3 million. Would the ratepayers like to have a $3 million reduction in regards to the assets owned by the City of Swan? In regards to that, that's an important question. In regards to another motion, a very simple one is to publicly elect a mayor. Sounds simple. It really does. Like we can just put a vote out and everything else like that. But there's significant governance issues that we need to work through in how we treat these things. Respect is if you give something into due consideration. That's what we need to do. Now, I'm not saying we can't debate these issues, councillors, but it's also important to get the full information. In regards to motion 6, I believe that Ms Leahy and financial advisors need to give us a full report in regards to the in regards to divesting into fossil-free items, and also to publicly elect a mayor. I believe that Ms Albright needs to do her full investigation, and we will do that by the ward's representation review. All these things will be discussed in the future. That's important. That's respect. If ratepayers want to put these motions through, of course they can. They have every right to, and so they should. But we, as councillors, as the representatives of that community, need to be fully aware of the consequences that we will undertake financially in regards to motion 6, and also how that works through a governance issue in regards to motion 9. And there's other motions I can bring to attention in regards to more information will be required to discuss. If any councillor wants to bring to publicly elect a mayor in regards to motion 9, you'll hear my debate and go from there. And I have no issues debating that in the future. But we need time to sort this out internally and how we go through our processes as well. Because it's just as important, because that's the ultimate respect.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Podovnik.
Look, just really quickly, this motion doesn't ask us to vote on the motions of the electors' meeting that night, whatever night we decide to come together in a special meeting. There's no directive here that we have to vote and make a decision. It literally is doing a little bit better than noting concerns and noting these motions. And I think, back to what Councillor Catalano said, I think that's the least we can do for these electors who've made the effort to come and address council. It's not a big ask. This motion has come in response simply to being noted. Again, I think we can do better than simply noting these motions. We're asking to bring them back to council. This motion is a good start. Let's have a closer look at what people are asking us to do. We can defer it, we can ask for an investigation, we can have those discussions, but it's a really good first step. Please support this motion.
Speaker against? And Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I don't think I've ever been to a electors' meeting where there's so many motions put forward at one time. And as a byproduct, I just wish that our public would share these motions with us through the year, and we could bring them to the chamber and have them dealt with right the way through the year through our normal standard council meetings. Sorry, am I affecting you over there, Mr Councillor Johnson?
Please continue, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you. I think the officers did a pretty good job of looking at all of the motions at hand. And yes, there are some notations, but with those notations there are also some clarifications on things that are happening beneath the scenes that are coming back to council. So the comment made was that we can have this brought back to another meeting and we don't have to vote on them. I don't understand that we don't have to vote on them. So then I guess that could probably another question in time. But I think, again, the officers have handled this pretty fairly, I say, and there is content that sits behind all of the motions, and we should just let this go through and let the officers deal with the noted items that are coming back to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yeah, it's interesting that two councillors who've spoken against this sort of democratic process, both of whom are not aware this is our normal practice. So, Councillor, certainly since 2017...
Point of order, please, Mr Mayor.
What's your point of order, Councillor?
I'm well aware of the normal practice of electors, meetings, motions coming to this chamber. And to be told I don't or I'm not aware is incorrect.
I don't think you are singled out, Councillor Congdon. You have no point of order. If you can continue, thank you, Councillor
Point of order,
Johnson.
Mr Mayor, that's incorrect. The two councillors voted talking against the motion. That's singling out.
We're the only two councillors.
So that's singling out.
There is no point of order. He singled you out for speaking against it, but then went on to say it's normal course of practice that you bring them back individually. Thank you. If you continue, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, Mr Deputy Mayor, we have done this before. So certainly starting in 2017, when Councillor Congdon, you were not on council, the first attempt was to do it in a council meeting where there were fewer motions, and we basically divided them up. The debate took quite some time. And then the next year it was realised the better process would be to have a special meeting of council and deal with each of the motions individually. It worked really well. We got tremendous engagement from the community. And the process was that if a motion that was on the table was not in its written form completely workable, the councillor can put up an alternate motion or can amend it and then bring it forward. So that's how it works. So it's been done before. So it's nothing unusual. And I think it shows great respect to the community. Many of those people who brought these motions are passionately engaged with our community and do respect this council. And they respect and they brought the motions because they knew full well that our practice has developed in recent years has been to hold a special meeting and actually deal with each of the motions individually. They're tremendously good. You get new ideas that we've never heard of. I did hear one councillor, must have been either Councillor Congdon, must have been Councillor Congdon, maybe we need to have more meetings of electors. Maybe we, instead of having just an annual meeting of electors, we ought to have a quarterly meeting of electors. Have perhaps
Mr Mayor, point of order, please.
What's your point of order, Councillor Congdon?
I did not say we needed to have more electors meeting. I did not say we need to have electors meeting quarterly. What I said was that motions could be brought to council on a regular
Throughout the
basis.
Thank you. There's no point of order, Councillor.
So that's how I interpreted what you said, Councillor Congdon, that it was a desire for more electors meetings. Instead of having special electors meetings, we could have periodic electors meetings. And then we could have a special meeting of council to follow that to deal with the motions put forward. So, councillors, this is our normal practice. This is the practice that we've developed over the last few years. Two councillors opposing this aren't familiar with it. So, councillors, I urge you to support this very sensible motion because it's our standard practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Then your right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, we're going to have to pause some items for tonight. We're just going to have to. We're not going to get through everything, and there's still quite a bit to get through. I'm just saying these get lumped into the special electors meeting. So I'm saying put these aside. Let's get into these other important issues. The important one for tonight is the one we have to deal with in the red folder, and I draw your attention to that again. So we are going to be putting aside some motions. Let's get on with this. Put these aside for the moment. It's either put these ones aside or put the rest of the meeting aside, because we're going to be involved in debate for a long time. So I'll just put it to the vote because we're wasting time.
Thank you. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Catalano, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Scanlon. That is 5. The motion is lost. I'm looking for an alternative motion, councillors. You move in the officer's recommendation. Councillor Parry, you're seconded, Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it, councillors?
Yes, on this occasion I do.
If you can start your debate. Thank you, Councillor Parry. I'm going to, because of the time frame which was just brought to head by Councillor Kiley, and we've just debated this, I'm going to limit all debates to 3 minutes. Thank you.
I don't need to debate this, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Congdon. Councillor Johnston, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't think it'll take 3 minutes. Look, I just want to draw Council's attention, having voted against this very sensible practice that we've instituted in recent years. One of the things that Councillor Parry came up with was that, this is a very difficult thing to consider, how to publicly elect the Mayor. Councillor, your arguments are completely incorrect. It's all part of the Local Government Act. There's a well-established process for doing it. All the motion is doing is saying to initiate the process of publicly electing the Mayor. It's not that hard or that difficult. It's all there. And it's the same with all the other motions. They're all straightforward and simple.
What about Mr Mayor? That's simply not correct. They're not all simple. Trust me.
Thank you, councillors. If we can just stick to the 3 minutes.
If you don't understand, you should be quiet.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I completely find that comment completely unnecessary due to the fact I know motion 6 better than... Well,
yes, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Parry took offence to that comment. Councillor Johnston, you can withdraw it now.
Mr Mayor, better withdraw it now. But I do think this is a standard practice, and I think Councillor Parry spoke a lot about respect. Please respect our community and the knowledge and skills that they have that perhaps you don't always have yourself.
Thank you. You've got a right to reply if you wish, Councillor Parry. Yes or no?
I won't open that up.
Thank you. I'm going to put it to the vote. Those councillors in favour of the officer's recommendation of Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Jones, Councillor McNamara, Councillor Congdon, Councillor Parry, myself and Councillor Zanino. The motion is passed. Against were Councillors Kiley, Catalano, Johnson, Prodovnik and Richardson. Thank you. That takes us to the next item. Yes. At the suggestion of the CEO, I'd like to take us to the confidential folder so we can get those items we must deal with out of the way. So for that to occur, I need a... there's some have been withdrawn, some haven't. The ones that haven't been withdrawn we can vote on block. So I need a recommendation, Councillor's motion to go behind closed doors. Move Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor McNamara. Is there anyone against? We're going to go behind closed doors because there's some items in the confidential folder that we must deal with tonight. We'll be coming back out. Item motions which previous notice has been given. And C 1.1, Councillor Johnson, building setbacks for new junction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to write to the landowners of the Midland Oval locations listed below, requesting that they consider including in their development plans a setback to protect the area of the Midland Oval as follows. The area marked X, which you can see on the diagram overleaf, councillors, which I submitted with the motion. The area marked X, bounded by the residential park, the outer north-eastern perimeter of the Midland Oval Velodrome, the avenue and residential street 2. And B, the area marked Y on the diagram, bounded by the avenue, the outer south-eastern perimeter of the Midland Oval Velodrome and the laneway. And the reason for the motion, there's a new reasons on page 38 of the order sheet, councillors. The council is unable to change the scheme amendment or the subdivision of land as the land within the boundary of the oval marked X and Y has been sold. I'm going to slightly change this one here. The community wish to retain open space. I've deleted the word green. The community wish to retain open space on the site of the oval, even if it is not public open space. Sending a letter requesting setbacks for the consideration of the owner will be of negligible cost and potentially great benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? There's no seconder. The motion lapses. Well, I'm just going to warn everyone now. I've called for a seconder. I looked over here. There's no hand go up. I've looked over to this side of the room, I've gone back to this side of the room, and I said there's no seconder, therefore the motion lapses. After I've determined that, you can't put your hand up and say I'm going to second it. So the motion has lapsed. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, it's not lapsed. I have to object to that. This has happened before, and if you don't, I don't believe it has. I just can't accept that. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Johnson, I've determined that the motion has lapsed.
Mr Mayor, you have if I may respectfully point out to you, you did this to us once, Mr Deputy Mayor. You did this to us when you were Mayor. So I have a seconder, and I'd like to proceed.
Well, you didn't have a seconder.
Yes, I did. I did.
I'm not going to argue, Councillor Johnson. If you're disagreeing with my ruling, I'll put it to the council for a vote. Is that the way you want me to do?
Well, Mr Mayor, I want you to chair the meeting in the way that you're expected to do so. And I feel that not noticing Councillor Richardson's hand going up is not really
I'm
the
sorry.
right thing.
I looked at Councillor Richardson twice, Councillor Johnson. She may have put her hand up after I said the motion lapsed for want of a seconder, but the motion had already lapsed. I'm sorry.
No.
So we're going on to item C 1.2. Councillor Johnson's proposed amendment of the structure plan and subdivision Midland Oval redevelopment master plan. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, can we put it to a vote, please? Can we please vote on your ruling? It's really
Okay,
very...
I'm going to put it to the vote.
Not fair.
Councillor Johnson believed he had a seconder before I called him that the motion had lapsed. As there is no seconder, those in support of Councillor Johnson, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The motion is lost. We're on to C 1.2. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, my next motion is that the Council resolve to request the CEO to report to Council on the steps to amend the structure plan and subdivision for the Midland Oval redevelopment master plan to include additional 2 lots of public open space within the envelope of the outside of the Midland Oval velodrome, as shown on the accompanying diagram and annotated 1 and 2 as defined as follows. You can see the diagram overleaf, councillors. A, the Area 1, bounded by the Avenue, Residential Street 3 and the outer northwest perimeter of the Midland Oval velodrome. B, the Area 2, bounded by the Avenue, the Piazza and the outer southwest perimeter of the Midland Oval velodrome. The reason for the motion is that the Midland community want the land within the envelope of the Midland Oval velodrome to be retained as public open space. 2, a larger park space to support large events with social distancing if needed. 3, the Midland Oval redevelopment to go ahead with sufficient public open space. 4, the residential zoning in Midland is up to R80/100, if you could put that in there. The /100, that is. And when large blocks of flats are planned, large areas of public open space are needed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? I see your hand now, Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Seconder is Councillor Richardson. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? No. You're against? Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Johnson, please start your debate.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Mr Mayor, the reasons for this motion are many, but they centre around the fact that the Midland residents, ratepayers and electors, that is the community we represent, wish to retain within the outline of the old Midland Oval as much public open space as possible. A brief history of the Oval for those new to this issue. The land was donated on 31st of January 1900 by William Byerswood to the Mayor and Councillors of Helena Vale, which was the original local government entity in Midland. It was marked on the title as Recreation Ground, and we can supply the title to anyone who wants to see it. The land, unfortunately, was not vested as Crown land. The Recreation Ground was used for many years as a sports oval, and eventually by the 1990s, this council chose to move the sporting activities to the Midland Sports Complex and the Midvale Velodrome and Lilac Hill in the Swan Valley. The expectation of the Midland community from the 1990s was the Midland Oval would be repurposed as a Midland Central Park. Unfortunately, by 2012, the Midland Oval and Commercialisation Committee had been formed with an intent to commercialise the Oval. We still have that committee today. It's now called the Swan Development Committee. Now, there have been a number of events since 2012 that are of note. In November 2013, that was a trigger date when a business plan should have been provided for the purchase of the land around the Midland Oval because it was for a common purpose. In November 2013, it was clear that more than $10 million was going to be spent. On November 2014, Council was briefed on the MORM, as it was known. And by July 2015, the MORM was advertised for public comment. In August 2015, the Demol business plan was advertised. And on the 25th of November, number 4, the Avenue Midland business plan was approved, and a higher bid turned down by Council, which Councillor Henderson will remember well. And then there were numerous special elections meetings that went on for some time, all of which hundreds and hundreds of people made it clear that they wanted to retain this section of the Oval as public open space. Councillors, even in this agenda at 8.1, we had motions from the annual meeting of electors to retain the Midland Oval insofar as it can be retained, and we had representatives from the Midland Society here tonight making it clear that they support this motion. So the key reasons for retaining as much of the Oval as possible are: 1, the Midland Oval was a charitable donation dating from 1900, and the City has a fiduciary duty to retain it. 2, the Midland Oval wished to retain the Midland Oval as a recreational park. 3, the community wishing to retain the Midland Oval is large and representative, as you've seen from the many meetings. There was insufficient public consultation between 2008 and August 2015 when the draft MORM was issued. The Oval can be retained and still keep most of the features of the proposed amended MORM using the proposal I put forward. The economics of property development favour retention of the Oval because it will provide more public open space. And there is insufficient open space in Midland, far less than is needed for the urban housing strategy and the MORM. Midland's urban tree canopy needs more trees, and more open space, not less, is needed to combat the urban heat island effect. The new Weir Park, as you heard, has proved too small and unsuitable for even small public events. The pandemic has shown the importance of public open space for social distancing. Finally, councillors, this motion is feasible. The council still owns the land. There is no reason why we can't get on and report on the steps to amend the structure plan. No matter which way we go in the future, no matter what roads we have, we're still going to need to retain areas 1 and 2 because areas 1 and 2 are part of the original Oval, and that is what is wanted. We can do it either way. Even if we keep these existing roads or we move to a new road structure, we still need to retain areas 1 and 2 in an amended structure plan. So the purpose of this is to protect that land. Councillors, this motion is in the best interest of the residents, ratepayers, electors, this council, staff and even the property developers. We can have New Junction and retain nearly all of the Oval, so what's not to like about this motion? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson is the seconder. No. Councillor Prodovnik is against.
I'd just like to say that I do agree with the reasons for this motion, which is to try and increase public open green space in the Midland Oval design. But this motion is just premature in my view. I don't think we should tinker with the design until we have a review and see where we are at with the MORM, where it sits within the changing landscape of Midland, particularly as there's been a lot of big changes in Midland recently, and a lot of changes since the MORM was ratified by Council years ago. We've got the new Bunnings, we know about Clayton Street, we know about Robinson Road, we know about the new railway facility, we know about a lot of things that are happening, including the train station. It's going to change a lot of the road structures, and we know that there's some big changes happening. So let's have a look at that data first. Later this month, we're going to have a briefing on the Midland Oval, and I'm keen to review where we are at with the design in light of all the other changes that are happening in Midland. A review should be the first step before we even think about amending structure plans around the Midland Oval Master Plan, and the Midland Oval Master Plan. Let's do a proper review to give us a better idea of what we can actually do and potentially change in the master plan, if we can, to provide more public open green space. I do support all the reasons for this motion. They are good aims to have. I just don't think this motion will achieve those aims, which is why I'm not supporting it tonight.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Speaker against the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Johnson, you're right to reply. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, in my view, this is something we really need to do. No matter what changes take place in Midland, we still need to retain areas 1 and 2. So and I have been advised by staff the only way to do that is to amend the structure plan. So there is nothing else to do. You can't just amend the master plan, you must also amend the structure plan. So that's what we need to do. I don't think it is premature. We've been banging away at this for 5 years, and I'm pretty confident we're going to get there. It's a key strategic direction of people in Midland. It's what we want. So we want to retain areas 1 and 2. I think this is the way to go. So anyway, it's getting late. I suggest you vote.
Thank you. I'm going to put it to the vote. Those in favour? I have 2 being Councillor Johnson and Richardson. The others are against. The motion fails, which takes us to item C 1.3. Councillor Johnson, review of speed limit, Walcott Avenue, West Swan.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to request that Main Roads WA undertake a speed review on Walcott Avenue, Henley Brook, from Murray Street to West Swan Road to lower the speed limit from 70 kilometres an hour to 50 kilometres an hour. The reason for the motion is the road is being used by a large number of vehicles. The road appears to be not safe for vehicles travelling at 70 kilometres an hour. A 50 km/h speed limit from Murray Street to West Swan Road is consistent with the existing 50 km/h speed limit in the newly urbanised section of Walcott Avenue. The residents, electors and ratepayers of the area are concerned about the fertilities to displace kangaroos that are gathering to forage along Walcott Avenue. 5, a reduced 50 km/h speed limit is likely to reduce kangaroo facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Richardson, is there anyone against? There is. Do you
I
wish
have a
to debate
question. I have a question.
I'll just ask, do you wish to debate it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Deputy
Thank
Mayor.
you. Your question, Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My question is to the staff. How long and how detailed is the request to for this to go to Main Roads? Staff time and...
It would be fairly straightforward. It's normally just an email and a couple of meetings.
There were people against Councillor Johnson. They wish to debate it. Do you think you can keep your debate to 3 minutes?
Yeah, look, I wasn't actually going to say anything. I think Walcott Avenue's been done to death. I think we know what the problems are. I think we know we need to reduce the speed limit. So that's all I've got to say on this.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson. Speaker against, Councillor Parry.
Yeah, again, I wish to point to councillors paragraph 3. The city is able to request a review at the speed zone. However, it is unlikely that Main Roads would support a review at this time, as a review was recently undertaken. It's pretty simple. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. First things first. This is actually a rural zone, not a residential zone, so the 50 km/h concept or thought bubble doesn't actually fit. It's interesting to note that councillors are recognising the fact that there's lots and lots of urban traffic using the rural road, which we've been saying for ages we don't need and we don't want. So there's a couple of points there that that don't fit. In regard to the kangaroos, well, quite clearly those matters have got to be sorted out in the near future by Pete and the like, and I believe that's underway. So if we want to look at the big picture, what's the big picture? The big picture should be that we need to close Walcott Road at Murray. And retain it as a rural road for the rural residents, and let the urban...
Councillor Henderson, you're getting off track. If you can just stay to the 50 km speed limit, please.
Well, I was going to sort of touch on that too, but okay, I thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. The point I wanted to make is that the urban traffic flow normally travels at a slower speed than the rural traffic flow. When a review is done by Main Roads, they invariably look at things such as the zoning, which of course is rural, and clearly that would be a major factor for them to consider. I want to cover a broader picture though. Across pretty much the entire Swan Valley, apart from a few roads, The council sought from Main Roads many years ago, around 2003 or 5 or something, to do a blanket 70k an hour speed limit across the rural zone.
You have 1 minute left, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. And Main Roads agreed to that on the basis of the rural traffic flow and on the basis of a uniformity, if you like, across the area. So to introduce a 50k zone, or even to ask for that in the rural zone, flies in the face against the normal processes that have been put in place already. So there's no way I can accept it, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Johnson, you're right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've been to visit this road on several occasions and spoken to people there. Circumstances have changed. It is really quite a dangerous road, and that's why I put this up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put it to the vote. Those councillors in favour? I have Councillor McNamara, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Richardson. The motion is lost. Everyone else was against. Takes us to the next item, which is Councillor Johnson, C1.4, designated Midland as a heritage area. Thank you.
So my motion is that Council resolve to request the CEO report to Council on the desirability and feasibility of designating the suburb of Midland as a heritage area under Part 7.2 of Local Planning Scheme 17. Reason for the motion: special planning control is needed to conserve and enhance the cultural heritage significance and character of Midland.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Richardson. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor. Let me just find my...
It's on page 590.
Oh, I've just got my notes the wrong way around. Mr. Mayor, the trigger for this motion is the recent application for demolition of older properties in the residential area of the suburb of Midland. The older properties are not all on the Municipal Heritage Register, and in some cases have not been assessed for inclusion on the Municipal Heritage Register. The State Inherit Online Register has 167 places, of which just 13 are on the State Heritage Register. Those 13 are the larger buildings you're familiar with, such as the Railway Institute, St Bridget's Catholic Church Group, the Chief Mechanical Engineer's Office, the Midland Post Office, and this building. Most of the remaining 154 properties are residential properties. The major buildings above were not built in isolation during the 19th century. They were surrounded by houses dating from the 1860s and later, some of which are still there, just a few. To understand the larger heritage buildings in context, we need to retain the older residential homes. The Heritage Register is categorised from 1 to 5. Properties at levels 1 and 2, such as this building, are protected from demolition. Properties lower down the register at levels 3, 4 and 5 are not protected from demolition. But there are many properties in Midland of significance that are not even on the register. They need at least to be assessed before a demolition permit is issued. For example, 5 Burgess Street, a house built in 1904, was demolished in February 2021. It was not on the Heritage Register even at level 5. If you look in the agenda, section 10.2, question 5, the answer to that was that 6 houses in Midland were demolished in 2020. So it's going on. So the idea for this motion came from the Midland Society, and it says about 5 Burgess Street.
You have 1 minute left.
According to our research, 5 Burgess Street was the home of basically some couple of war heroes who grew up there. 5 Burgess Street is one of many houses that are being lost. A demolition permit has been granted for 20 Keene Street in this year. It's still standing, but probably going to be gone soon. Mr van der Linde advised us recently that demolition of single houses under the city's local planning scheme says that no planning approval is required for the demolition of single houses under the planning scheme unless a number of exemptions apply, one of which is not located within a heritage area. So what that means is that if our houses were in a heritage area, they would at least come to council before they're demolished. They would be assessed. So Our local planning scheme at 7.2.1 says that if, in the opinion of the local government, special planning control is needed to conserve and enhance the cultural heritage significance and character of an area, the local government may by resolution designate that area as a heritage area. Our local planning policy can apply to that area, and that policy can include ensuring the older buildings dotted in among the new buildings are not demolished without assessment.
Have you got long to go, Councillor?
Oh, I've just got 2 paragraphs, Mr Mayor. So we know there are lots of new modern buildings in Midland, but dotted in amongst those new modern buildings are lots of older valuable buildings. You only need to look down Cale Street, and it's not possible to draw up different locations. I actually looked, is there any way of reducing? But the whole of Midland has this character. 2 more paragraphs. The report says that the staff are busy with a review of the Guildford Conservation Policy. While this is important, I think protection of Midland is more urgent. We could put the review of Guildford on hold for a year and focus on Midland instead. So, councillors, in summary, this motion is requesting a report about declaring in Local Planning Scheme 17 a heritage area in Midland in order to protect the remaining older residential homes that are not yet on the Heritage Register. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson as a seconder. No. Councillors against the motion. Councillor Congdon.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. But councillors, I would just draw you to page 590. And the first 4 paragraphs speak for itself, but it's the 5th paragraph, the last one at the bottom, is the city's already planned to commence a review of the local heritage survey. And it talks here about the quantity of heritage area and the great majority of cases to be concentrated on built heritage and consistent architectural style. If this current review is planned to go underway, just let it get underway. And I can't see the sense of saying, let's put a hold on Guildford to do a Midland. Let's finish Guildford and then commence one for Midland if necessary, but maybe the LHS will take care of a lot of the discussion points that have been mentioned by Councillor Johnson. So I'm in favour of letting that review take place and then revisit it once we have that content. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Speakers against the motion. Councillor Prodovnik.
Look, there's no denial that Midland has a really long and wonderful history. And there's a number of streets that have heritage houses that could create heritage precincts. And that's definitely worth exploring. Once these precincts have been identified, this can come back to council and we can decide if special planning control is needed to conserve and enhance cultural heritage significance and character of an area or street. Now, I do strongly support protection for our heritage. And we can look at creating a local planning policy for each heritage precinct in Midland to provide stronger protection. It does need to be targeted, in my view. So yes, to investigating historical precincts, particularly those identified by the Midland Society, but no to designating the suburb of Midland as a heritage area. It just has too many new buildings. The best we can do is investigate potential heritage precincts in Midland and then identify how we can better protect these precincts and how we can proceed to get a beautiful mix of old and new in our town. I think that's what we should be doing and not heritage listing the whole suburbs, and that's why I can't support this motion.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Johnson, your right to reply, please.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're not heritage listing the whole of Midland. It's different to the Guildford situation. What we're doing is declaring a heritage area. And with the heritage area, there would be a local planning policy. And that local planning policy would obviously distinguish between the older heritage buildings that are 80 plus years old, which are not on the heritage list, and the newer buildings such as Midland Gate, which surely are never going to have any heritage value. As for leaving it to the local heritage survey, I've seen this local heritage survey occur, and all it really does is take a few off, add a few on, but doesn't really comprehensively do the survey. I think it would be potentially prohibitively expensive to survey the whole of Midland, and yet declaring a heritage area is a simple, low-cost thing to do. And we could attach to it a policy that would mean any building with certain characteristics over a certain age would need to come to council for approval before demolition. That's the whole point. That's what the Midland Society have asked for. They brought it to my attention that 2 houses have been demolished recently, or one has been demolished and one is threatened to be demolished. If we don't put some protections in place before we know it, all we're going to have is lots of blocks of flats, and all we'll have is, 13 large heritage buildings such as this town hall, and people will wonder, what did Old Midland look like? So this is quite a good way to go in my view. I live in Guildford. I think we could put the Guildford review on hold and do Midland instead. That's my view. Thank you.
Thank you. I now put it to vote. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Johnson, Councillor Richardson, Councillor Catalano. That's 3. The motion is lost. Which takes us to item C 1.5. Councillor Kiley, Bitchetech, Great Northern Highway, Upper Swan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, my motion is to submit to that Council resolve to 1, to request the CEO to write to the owners of Lot 16 and Lot 32, Great Northern Highway, Upper Swan, also known as Bitchetech, A, reminding them of their obligations under the approved development application, specifically that no blending, mixing or heating of bitumen-related products is permitted on the site. B, requesting their confirmation in writing on whether such activities are occurring or not. And C, indicate that the City will, as part of this process, visit the site to confirm the activities thereon. 2, that if the outcome of 1 above or other evidence provided to the City results in evidence that the activities on the site are in conflict with any condition of the approvals or approval, it will therefore follow that necessary action pursuant to the Planning and Development Act or other relevant legislation will be instituted. And 3, request the CEO to inform Council of the outcome of the above. The reason for the motion: Local Planning Scheme Amendment 150 sought to modify the existing additional use number 36 entry to make industry general a discretionary use to enable limited bitumen processing to occur on site. This scheme amendment would have supplemented the existing approval, which allows bitumen to be stored and transported from the site. The Minister has refused the scheme amendment on 8th of July last year, 2020, which further confirms that no blending, mixing or heating of bitumen are allowed on the site. Odours experienced in the vicinity of the site may relate to that normally associated with heated bitumen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zanino. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? Yep. Thank you. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Kiley, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I draw your attention to the email that you've all received today from the Upper Swan Residents and Ratepayers Group, and I'm just going to bring that up if you don't mind. It says, "Good morning, councillors. The Upper Swan District Residents and Ratepayers Association Incorporated would appreciate your support for the notice of motion put by Councillor Kiley regarding the above, which will be heard this evening. As you were aware, a local resident and myself were in attendance at the Agenda Forum last Wednesday evening to hear the representative from Bitchetech speak against the motion and also to speak in support of the motion. The first point raised by Bitchetech's representative, Mr Lundy, was the proposed move to Mouchet expected to be within the next 3 or 4 months. We have been informed in writing on several occasions of operations would be moved to Mouchet in approximately September or October last year, which of course is long gone. Then again, the operations would be moved by March 2021, which is also passed. This is the third approximate relocation time we have been given, and as a consequence have little faith in Bitchetech meeting this timeline. We are concerned you may not be aware of the shifting timelines. The representatives also mentioned the complaints against Bitchetech, which have been investigated and have been proved to be the fault of Bitchetech. We question how these complaints were investigated, as most often there has not been any investigation due to the time of the complaints being registered. Generally, the odour dissipates before any investigation is conducted. Those people submitting complaints have not been advised Bitchetech has been found to be at fault.
You have 1 minute left, Councillor Colley.
Following previous investigations by the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation in response to odour complaints, Bitchetech was found to have constructed a bitumen manufacturing facility without works approval and licence. Given the time I've only got left, I remind councillors that this is simply just a letter. It's going to cost us $1.20 for a stamp now to send. It's simply normal process for what staff should be doing potentially anyway when we get complaints about non-compliance with a condition. The owner of Bitchetech stood up here last week and said that, yes, to move bitumen from one tank to the next, they have to heat it. He admitted in this chamber that he was heating bitumen. This letter needs to go for the sake of the residents who live in the area. We need to support them. They are non-compliant by the mere fact that he has admitted that they heat the bitumen. I've been up there a number of times. When you drive past with just the window down, you can smell heated bitumen. It's not appropriate, councillors. It's not compliant with the conditions. It's a transport depot. They are moving into an industrial, general industrial use by heating bitumen.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. Councillor Zanino is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I support Councillor Kiley's motion and what he has basically put forward. The residents of the Upper Swan locality have been there, some of them have been there for many, many years, and they don't complain just for the sake of complaining. I think that everyone in this room would agree that this type of industry should never have been approved to go there in the first place, because it is something which is going to generate problems for locals, whether it's dust, noise, smell, and unfortunately they just cannot mitigate it because of the distance from existing residential houses. Therefore, it is appropriate, and at the agenda forum last week, the owners from Bitchetech stated that they will be moving to Mouchet, which is probably a great location for this business. And I don't think that what Councillor Kiley has put forward here is going to impede them in any way. I think that, if they are there, they are obviously, creating problems. Then they should be checked out and a letter should go to them, and I don't think it's going to impede them in any way. Maybe it will give them an incentive to move sooner rather than later. Apart from that, if they comply, then maybe they can stay there longer. But unfortunately, as Councillor Kiley said, as the owner said himself, they do have to heat the bitumen, and unfortunately when you heat bitumen it does smell and create fumes. So I think that there is really nothing wrong with what Councillor Kiley has put forward, and it should be supported.
Thank you. It's just turned 10 o'clock. I intend to finish this item, councillors. So Councillor Congdon, you're speaking against. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm not opposed, Councillor Kiley, to the CEO writing to Bitchetech. What I'm opposed about is the need to write to an organisation that has got development conditions that our compliance officers aren't doing as a natural course of business. When it says, let's send them a letter to remind them of their obligations, well, that's cool. So they go, yep, thanks very much. You've reminded my obligations. Cheers. And then request their confirmation in writing of whether such activities are occurring. Well, no, they're not occurring. Thanks very much. Then it says indicate that the city will, as it's part of the process, visit to confirm their activities. So what you're saying is write them a letter. If they write back and say, it's okay, guys, I'm doing the right thing, thanks very much indeed, and then you go, well, I don't really care what you wrote back to me at all. What we're going to do is we're going to send a member of staff out, a compliance officer out, because we don't believe what you've told us. And to me, it seems a very simple thing. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of planning applications supported with lots of conditions. We've got scrap metal yards, we've got, you name it, we've got it. We've got trucking depots, it's everywhere in the city of Swan. It's such a complex city. So are we going to write to them all? Or are we only going to write to Bigitech because bitumen, the smell of bitumen has been observed from a neighbour when it could have been from a truck at Ginger's garage? And I've been travelling back and forth to the golf course up at Bullsbrook for a long period of time, and I can tell you I've smelled a lot of bitumen on trucks at Ginger's. And so I don't know where it comes from. But my whole point is, and I made a point of this to our staff, of how many compliance officers we have. If we need to up the ante on compliance, and we need to put more compliance officers on to get the job done, then do it. What this company should have is a compliance officer turning up when they don't expect it.
You have 1 minute, thank you.
Well, I'm getting it. When they don't expect it. And just turn up and go, oh, right? And not write a letter saying, tell me if you're doing it or you're not doing it, and then indicate a part of the process. Oh, by the way, thank you, Mr. Bigitech. We've got your letter saying you are compliant. However, we're going to send one of our compliance officers to you on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Well, hey, stop everything. You know, officers coming. Send them there at 11 o'clock. Send them there at 4 o'clock. Send them there at 2 o'clock. Send them there every day if you need to for a month. But I don't have the right. No, I can't. Sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Henderson, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to start off by saying that I've been a strong supporter of the Upper Swan District's Residents and Ratepayers Association and the journey, I'll put it, that they've been on with this particular issue. Let's face it, there's been a bit of a moving line, if you like, about what's general rule and what isn't, and we've been through all that discussion with Mr. Russell over time. I just wanted to put a couple of things on the table about some of the things that have been said, and thank you for reading all that out because I printed it out, but I just wanted to cover a couple of points. Now, there's talk that there were delays in getting everything moved to Mushay. Well, absolutely, there were delays. The council up there took forever to give them an approval, but they've only just now received their approval, so that's why they said at the meeting last week that they're able to get things moving and have it done in a few months. So that covers that issue. The other issue is in relation to the odour. Now, I was intrigued about the dates that one of the presenters last week gave us. We had the 8th, the 9th, I think the 14th and the 23rd. So I made some inquiries. Bigitech didn't actually do any transfers on the 8th and the 9th. And the wind was east-northeast, so you've got to consider that the residents are to the west. On the 14th, they did a transfer at midday.
You have 1 minute left, Councillor Henderson.
And on the 23rd, they did a transfer at 7 through to 8 a.m. in the morning when it was southeast to southeast winds. The point is that it would have been blowing away from them. But it's also known that there is another carrier in the area that's carting the crumbed rubber bitumen. That's the stuff that stinks. Yeah, it really stinks. Now, they've been carting through there for ages. They stop at Ginger's from time to time, and clearly you're going to have some venting from them because the stuff's heated, as you know. So I think that if you look at the question of where's it coming from, the fact is that the department has been out there and checked them out and gave them a tick. Our staff have been out there already and gave them a tick. Yes, I believe so, from what inquiries
You've
I've
got long
made.
to go, Councillor Henderson.
Well, I might ask for an extra minute if I may, because there are a couple of little things.
Thank you. Keep going.
So the point I want to make is that whilst I understand that you're trying to help the residents, and I just think that there's some questions around where is the odour coming from. They are moving, that's been dealt with, and I think what we're asking staff to do is something that's just simply a waste of time because they're moving on. So I just simply ask that we set this aside and let them get on with it and move out of there. Thank you.
Question, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Question to Councillor Henderson. I'm just intrigued about who and how you made your inquiries and got that information about the truck times for the movements on those days.
I inquired from Bitchatec on those dates what movements they made, and that's what I just said.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Then just before you write a reply, Councillor Kiley, I'm going to support the motion, mainly based on the officer's comment saying that this proposal is a normal and reasonable action to ensure maintenance of compliance with the city's local planning scheme, to ensure that diligent oversight is observed and is occurring. I think writing the letter is one thing, what they write back to us is another, but I'm sure that a compliance officer can go there unannounced and see if they're complying with their conditions of approval. So I'll be supporting the motion. You'll write a reply, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we've heard on a previous item tonight about an ex-use in an area where it was an ex-use, and this is a similar situation. This area is zoned not rural, but it's a zoned resource, and this type of operation is an ex-use in this area. And it's unfortunate for Bitchatec, and I commend them for the work they do. It's unfortunate that whether they inadvertently got approval for a transport depot and thought that it would be okay to heat and move bitumen around. I mean, it seems like a normal practice to move goods on and off a vehicle, but in this case it involves heating. So I hear what you're saying about the move to Mouchet, but there's been a changing timeline of when that would occur. And we also heard, I put the question to the owner of Bitchatec, that would you be moving all the tanks up there? Now, at one stage he said, yes, I'm moving everything, all operations up to Mouchet. At another time he said, I haven't made my mind up yet as to whether I'd leave a couple of tanks back there. A couple of tanks basically means that operations to transfer bitumen would continue, and that would involve heating bitumen again, which is an ex-use for the area. So it's a pretty simple thing, but I just want to thank Councillor Congdon for the points that he raised and summed it up beautifully in terms of that we shouldn't be having to put this before council and have this discussion. This is, I think, an operational issue, and I think it's to some extent a little bit embarrassing to have to raise this at council, and I think if we should be putting more compliance officers out there. And as a result of the conversation we had last week where Mr van der Linden and Mr Russell got up and said, we don't have compliance officers checking on conditions. Well, I've already put a motion in to be considered at a future meeting that maybe we should fund more compliance officers, and thank you for raising that, Councillor Congdon. So please support this letter. It's a very simple thing to send out. And again, we're supporting the community of the Upper Swan residents and ratepayers group. I enjoy representing community, and that's what I got voted in for, and that's what I think we all did. We all bring something new to the table, but we need to support these communities. They're the ones being affected by it, and here is an opportunity to move all operations up to Mouchet. So if it does bring a little bit of attention and pressure on the operator, then that's a good thing. I wish him all the best, but hopefully he will move all operations up there unless he continues with just the transport. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put it to vote. Those councillors in favour. I've got Councillor Johnson. It's unanimous other than Councillor Henderson, so the motion is carried. Councillors, that completes all items in Part 1 of Part C. Item 2, notice of motions for consideration of the following meeting if given during this meeting. Are there any motions, Councillor? Okay, I saw Councillor Catalano first.
Thank you. I would like to raise a motion that the council bar no longer have alcoholic drinks, and I'll be working with staff to come up with that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Congdon, I saw your hand go up.
My motion is that council meetings to be suspended for a period of 10 minutes on completion of a 2-hour block to allow for a comfort break, and I don't necessarily mean a toilet break, a comfort break, we get up and stretch our legs away. I'll debate it.
Any others, councillors? Councillor Zanino? Order. Thank you. Still got motions coming.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I intend moving a notice of motion. I haven't got the wording right now, but I will give the wording to the CEO, and it's with regards to the changing of the name of Caversham.
Thank you. Any others, councillors? That completes all items on the agenda, councillors. I thank you for your participation. We close the meeting at 10:14 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.